We are going to have to act if we want to live in a different world.
Hey, Garom, someone's wrong on the internet.
This is unacceptable!
Welcome to LOVEseat 2. It's me, Victor Von Zoom, and with me is Garom. Sitting here.
Hello, Internet. And I hope to dear God you aren't wrong, because I will rip your head off.
Yeah, or he'll try to at least. Sherman had to deal with some bullshit this week, and last week was also bullshit. So it's just the two of us sitting here in the Temple of Nod on this comfy couch. What do you want to start with?
Let's start with the news that everyone won't shut the fuck up about.
France?
Comey getting his ass fired.
I thought it was going to be France, but that is true.
The France was the topic that no one could shut up about last week. This week it's all about the Comey and the fact that, I swear to God, name me one person on both sides of the aisle who is more hated in Washington than James Comey.
I mean, it kind of depends on the time period, because as we're seeing from Keith Olbermann by himself, he needed to be removed when he was the one behind the Clinton emails. Obviously,
Bernie Sanders had a huge speech where he openly said that he's lost confidence in James Comey. A lot of senators and congressmen on both sides of the aisle at various points in the last 6 or 7 months have said that they've lost confidence in his ability to lead the FBI, and he needs to, well, back then they were saying he needs to step down. So now he's been fired, and it's rather amusing to see the flip-flopping. I swear, people are flip-flopping on James Comey more than a fish out of water.
Yeah. I mean, this was funny. It was October in 2016? Very simple. FBI Director Comey needs to clarify today that these are not emails from or withheld by Clinton, or resign immediately. I can't do a good Keith Olbermann trying so hard at being a radio telecaster impression.
Here's my best Keith Olbermann impression. That guy, I swear to God, that guy talks out his ass 24/7.
Look, man, I'm not saying that was a bad impression. I'm saying that I didn't hear all the money escaping his ass and into the pockets of a super PAC that was funding that was funding somebody. I don't know how the fuck wasn't that was such a weird benchmark in media where MSNBC fried him for trying to pretend that they had fair and balanced. They were a fair and balanced news source. Oh no, this guy he fucks around a lot, so we're gonna he fucks around and spends some of his own salary on a super PAC for a I'm thinking that's what it was that got him fired from MSNBC, and he got replaced with Rachel Maddow in the same time slot. It was he had used some of his own personal money to donate to a super PAC for Democrats, and MSNBC basically fried him publicly about that so that they could pretend that they were more fair and balanced than Fox News was or something, because Fox News at the time was doing that whole push where they were like, Fox News, fair and balanced, with that gigantic fucking shit-eating grin.
I was about to say, it's Fox News. It shouldn't be too hard to convince people of that.
Yeah, because they have a user base that their Fox News is watching base, just fucking breathes whatever they they live and die by what they say, essentially. They're almost as bad as the Drudge Report. Regardless of the outcome, Comey must resign or be fired. At best, he's the most tone-deaf government official since Scooter Libby. Ugh. Whether this was an accident, stupidity, or electoral manipulation, Comey's credibility as the leader of the FBI is spent. #resign. And then when Donald Trump goes on his personal Twitter, crying, Chuck Schumer stated recently, I do not have confidence in him, James Comey, any longer. Then acts so indignant. #drain the swamp. Just like you were talking about. Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders and the rest of them came out and said they don't have any confidence in James Comey, and then when Trump fires him, they're like, oh, what the fuck?
And these are the same people who are probably bitching and whining about fake news.
I mean, Keith
As they-
literally, like, Keith went from like newscaster man, I'm still hyper professional. Look at me. To hell with you, you motherfucking traitor, in all caps on Twitter to show off how fucking cool he is.
The flip-flopping award has to go to John Podesta, who at this point you think would have just learned to shut his goddamn mouth.
I mean,
So on May 9th at 10 in the morning, he posted on Twitter, "The American public is getting mildly nauseous listening to Jim Comey." This in a reference to James Comey's comment about him being mildly nauseous about the Clinton investigation. Now, what happens later that day? This is, of course, May 9th being the day that Comey got sacked. He tweets at Donald Trump's personal account, "Didn't you know you're supposed to wait till Saturday to massacre people investigating you?"
oh man,
7 hours. That's 7 hours he flip-flopped from basically saying Comey sucks to Comey essentially insinuating that somehow Trump was wrong to fire him.
yeah.
Okay, first off, Podesta, I don't think you're being very smart by sticking your neck out there. The entire WikiLeaks article is, or revelations are still pretty fresh in everyone's memory. So probably, I don't know, laying low for about a year or two. Probably a good choice. Get a consulting job, you'll collect 6 figures. You don't really need to worry about it. Just wait for the WikiLeaks to get out of everyone's collective short-term political memory.
And then be back in it again within the next controversy. Because we need WikiLeaks to talk about the fucking dumb tape. And then we also need WikiLeaks to confirm that Trump did in fact have, and this is the spiciest story of the season right now, guys, 2 scoops of ice cream when everyone else had 1.
Again, the media, fake news. You're literally talking about a grown-ass man and how many scoops of ice cream he orders.
I can't believe that it took it this long for it to backfire on them, the fake news meme, really. Like,
the difference
power.
between a freaking Onion News, like, you think the Onion News would have written that story, and this is CNN, and they wonder why their ratings are tumbling.
Yeah.
If that doesn't tell you these people are living in a goddamn bubble and they have no idea what the fuck, like, I swear to God, they're not only living in a bubble, they're living in an underground bunker somewhere in Arizona. They must just be getting the news from Twitter. I mean, that's their only contact with the outside world, is just them looking at their phones. No windows, no nothing, no talking to people. Fuck actually doing real journalism.
Yep. Oh, God.
You really want to go into listing off everything Comey has done wrong in the last 6 months?
No,
really...
no. Can we just talk about, like, France instead?
Yeah, Comey was goddamn fucking incompetent beyond belief. He deserved to get fired. For all the Democrat fanboys and girls out there going, "Oh my God, but the investigation into Trump is going to stop." Okay, first off, what investigation? Can we be clear about this one? Just crystal fucking clear about this one. Second off, just because an FBI director gets sacked doesn't mean the investigation stops. What do you think the deputy is going to be doing? In fact, hey, guess what? The FBI director doesn't handle investigations themselves. They're kind of fucking busy doing this thing called managing a giant bureaucratic organization to do actual investigation.
Great.
Not to mention that the last time I checked, he isn't being investigated.
No, not really, especially after the fucking Whitewater shit. Even better, Wikipedia's already trying to whitewash the whole thing.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm not
like
too surprised.
They completely gloss over the shit that happened with Whitewater and Hillary Clinton, and then basically are talking about Like, they keep putting up all of these, like, feel-good speech things about it.
Yeah, it's pretty clear at this point Wikipedia has been completely infiltrated by the CTR types.
I don't think it's infiltrated. I think they were always this bad. I mean, the edit-a-thons were already a problem, but the thing is that, like, they keep removing actual, like... Something's going on Wikipedia that's fucking with me, and I bet Sherman has a better theory on the whole thing, but, like, they have been constantly fucking with content on the site, on any article, even when it's, like, you know, just articles that have nothing to do with, like, you know, hot button issues right now, like, you know, Russian military science during the Soviet era, for example, where they keep taking out, like, anything, like, they keep taking out anything that fully explains something, or anything that is a good graphical representation of something, like a flowchart. They keep taking, like, you know, images out and then shortening everything down into these little blurbs or paragraph that don't fucking explain shit, when it's something that, like, they don't want you to really know that much about. It's like, I don't know,
Ministry of Truth level shit.
Kind of. I mean, it's very subtle. It's hard to explain. I want to look into it more, but there's definitely something fucky going on. But until there's somebody with, like, you know, $1 billion to sink into a network infrastructure to fork Wikipedia over, because you could easily fork it, but, like, the issue is running it. And I mean, like, this is all probably because all their money comes from private donors, and those private donors might be, you know, Mark Zuckerberg types, because, like, they want to keep running it ad free, when it's like Wikipedia is, like, hyper, like, insanely accessed very often. It's like what they would they could very easily set up in a common contract law, like contracts like that would, or some kind of oversight committee that you know, prohibits them from ever, you know, editing articles or allowing anyone who advertises on their site editing articles about their products or something, and then just run ads on the site. I mean, that's probably not the best idea, but the whole, like, like, you know, they could run a Patreon or something, but, like, but when they're gonna do, like, private donors that are always shown to be anonymous, and then are gonna be, like, people like that, like, it's a huge issue, because they've essentially, it's like saying, you know, I don't know, doing some old OG conspiracy shit. It's like when, you know, Rockefeller and Vanderbilt, like, paid for, like, built all the colleges and everything. Yeah, people get to go to school, but at the same time, it's like those colleges are probably gonna be pushing ideas that those guys who are, you know, kind of complete bastards would approve of. But this is all unconfirmed. It's just me rambling. So you want to just talk about France?
What's there to talk about? France ain't going to be around for much longer.
Well, I was gonna say we can at least talk about we could put out the call if in all of our, like, 5 subscribers
there's a French person who wants to talk to us and explain a little more about boots on the ground.
Yeah, that would definitely be good. But I was gonna say, if there's an artist amongst one of the 5 of you, could you please help us out? We need to get a picture of the Macron from Quake 2. Where the Stroilant stuck in the Macron's chest is actually, like, President Macron being like, "Oh God, this is awful," and then we make, like, the Macron's face look like Angela Merkel. Like, we need to have this done. All right, this is for this is for progress and truth and justice and, like, world peace and shit. All right, I promise.
It's basically Quado from Total Recall. Just Merkel coming out of Macron's face. She's the real brains behind the operation.
Yeah, except, like, the other way around, because, you know, the Stroilant is the power source. You didn't play Quake 2, did you?
Nope.
Alright, well, the final boss of Quake 2... Now I have to explain this, I feel bad. But the final boss of Quake 2 was this giant thing called the Macron. Like, the military just called it the Macron. And it was... You know, it's this giant alien monster that has, like, a whole bunch of guns. It's basically a cyber demon. But, like, part of the art design for it is that it has a Stroilant, which is, like, a captured, strogified human soldier, set into its chest as a living power source. And it's just this guy screaming like, "Help me!" the entire time.
That's pretty super fucked up.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, France is going to be interesting the next couple of years as, Euroscepticism is still rife in France, and France, out of all the European countries, I think is probably even more cucked than even
Well,
Germany
there's
is.
an obscene amount of fucking voting fraud going on with them. Like,
I wouldn't to be. And there was a leaked email showing Macron's camp was openly talking with the Interior Ministry that was that's responsible for running elections in France. I mean, there was a massive amount of chicanery, and I don't think we should be too surprised. It's pretty much government policy in France to make sure the Front National, or anyone who's even in any way somewhat centrist, is able to get into power.
Yeah.
The French are kind of, I think...
Even though they're trying to be like, you don't understand, Macron was a radical alt-centrist outsider maverick.
Which is hilarious, because he was the banker. You're literally saying that about a guy who worked for the Rothschilds. Are you fucking kidding me?
Literally worked for the Rothschilds.
Literally worked, and this guy is the guy who.
This guy is the outsider candidate.
Yeah, born with a silver spoon in his mouth, went to the most expensive schools, prep school, and universities.
Fucked his teacher.
Yeah, this guy's the outsider. Yeah, no, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. He's the poster boy of the establishment. No, fuck you.
He had a fucking scandal on day one, and I can't wait till he gets hit by a truck.
Yeah.
The truck of peace strikes again.
On top of that, don't forget that the bullshit we're dealing with right now, with all the SJWs and everything, the postmodernism bullshit. Yeah, that's very much a product of the French. France has been the ground zero for this bullshit for, 200 going on 300 years? It's been slowly building, and it's been coming out of France from René Descartes. I actually recently read through, or at least listened to an audiobook, Meditations on First Philosophy. And that was an interesting read, but it was very interesting that René basically, the entire book is taken from the a priori approach. And he never sits down and goes, okay. His first concern in the book was being concerned about, what am I saying? Department of Redundancy department called, they want their words back. Anyways.
They have all the best words, as you know.
His first concern was the concept that it's possible for you to be deceived.
Yeah.
So he was philosophizing on, trying to reduce reality down to the most finite level that you could not be deceived by. Basically, what is fundamental characteristic of being. So the concept to think is to be is very much a derivative of René's thought process. And then he goes on about the nature of God and the nature of existence. Interesting. His entire logic for why God exists was you have a concept of infinity. But infinity fundamentally is a concept that can't exist in reality. So how can you perceive a concept which is impossible to exist? Ergo, there must be something beyond perception. Ergo, there must be a God. That was probably the closest René Descartes really got to trying to tackle reality in a more concrete sense. And this has been a trend that is very indicative of French philosophy. It's entirely a priori, and it's fucking worthless. Because at the end of the book, I'm sitting there, I got through the audiobook, and I'm like, and what the fuck do I do with any of this? Fuck all. The book's worthless. Oh yeah, one of the high watermarks in philosophy. Bullshit. This guy's a
Mhm.
fucking idiot. It's a couple hundred pages of a guy just going, um, fancy word, fancy word. I don't know. What the fuck do I know about life? I've got servants to worry about giving me food and all this other bullshit. I just ring my little bell and somebody brings me a goddamn sandwich. This is French philosophy from the get-go. It's a bunch of fucking aristocrats who know nothing about the world sitting around being fucking pricks, and they've convinced everyone else to go along with their dumbass philosophy. So if you want to know what's going on wrong in the world these days, blame the French and their retarded idea of philosophy. Compare that to freaking English philosophy. What were the English doing at the same time Rene Descartes was around? What they had people like John Locke, who was at least talking about government. They were at least thinking about how to get shit done. What the French talking about? Sitting on their ass all day long and getting drunk on cheap wine. You wonder why everything's going wrong.
Well, I mean, they were the first modern decadent. They were the first modern, like, decadent empire to fall to a modern revolution like that because of their decadence. Like, I know the American Revolution is talked about like it's the shot that heard around the world, but like the French Revolution, it happened for totally different reasons.
I mean, I could probably, if I knew more about French philosophy, which I unfortunately don't. There've been apparently one or two woke
French philosophy is dumb. Like,
there's been apparently been one or two woke ones that actually, could put
that
one and
kind
one
of got
together.
forgotten. But like
Yeah,
most
kind of
people,
got forgotten. But
most people just hear Rene Descartes and Voltaire, and like Rene Descartes, as you said, is the guy who's like behind the whole the dumb French. Such is life. Life is good. I will sip my wine. And
no. I say that was Jean-Claude Rousseau.
Oh, that was Rousseau.
Rousseau was a complete.
Rene Descartes.
It's painful. I tried to read through his On the Origin of Inequality, and I got to the line about he's talking about a deer in the woods, and he constructs this complete bullshit argument about how this deer has scars and it's endured all these attacks by predators. It thus proves that the deer is superior to man with man's medicine. I'm just looking at that going, oh, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
What's the survival rate of that deer to get up to that point in his life? Pretty fucking low. Compare that to a human. Way fucking better. His entire, the thesis of his entire work, I had to look it up because it just tossed it in the trash and forgot about it, was he thought that society made people worse. Honest to God, that was Rousseau's entire argument. Was he thinks that a societyless human race would be better than a human race with society. He thought that going back to living in caves would be a fairer system, apparently.
Except he was also a fucking bourgeois middle classman who never would have done that.
Yeah, he decided to be a philosopher sitting under a tree one day on a trip to Switzerland. Wow, that really helps. I mean, well, most of your population is
truly the reincarnation of Siddhartha Gautama.
Yeah, well, most of your population is living hand to mouth, working in the fields, dying by the age of 30 or 40, deciding to change career paths because your stomach is bulging with food and you're drunk on wine sitting under a tree. Like, this is really the person you want to listen to. And how do they get that rich? Daddy's money, probably. Yeah. The English have always been more pragmatic when it comes to philosophy, more pragmatic.
Well, I mean, the English in general had their empire because of, how the inherent pragmatism of living on a fucking island. Like,
yeah.
I remember a good case to be made. I mean, I know I'm probably like in the minds of our like two viewers, I've completely ruined their perception of me having anything good to say about anything because I'm like, I got fucking Descartes and Rousseau fucked up, but like there's a strange parallel to be made with Japan and Britain in the sense that like they didn't do things the same way at all or similar, or they were similar cultures or had the same kind of spirit, But like, what was similar about them was that they were both island nations that grew to became insanely powerful military powers for their time period relative to everyone around them, because they were so pragmatic in how they operated, and were so,
and you had to.
They were so practical, and they were so intelligent because they had, necessity is the mother of invention. They had nothing on those islands. That's why
I was about to say,
the katana meme is so fucking enduring.
So what you just said, necessity is the mother of invention, that makes a lot of sense for their philosophy, why they're so pragmatic. They're constantly having to make value judgments about everything because they're used to an environment where their resources are limited. And you're constantly having to judge, is this worth it? And you have to develop a good sense of value in order to well, if you don't, you're going to die because you're going to make bad choices. You're not going to get value in anywhere near as the amount of value you're pumping into an action as you're getting out of the action. You're going to starve to death. If you have to deal with limited resources, yes, you will learn to make value judgments far better than someone who doesn't have to, like the Continentals, who could trade far easier. So what you just said, yeah, I'm unsurprised. Absolutely unsurprised. Probably another problem we're having today is people don't need to make value judgments. And in fact, if you look at the SJWs, a core tenet of their philosophy is that you don't make any value judgments. The very act of making a value judgment or ascribing value to something is an immoral act. And that's only achievable in a society or an environment where you have so many resources that you don't need to make value judgments because you ain't going to starve to death. It doesn't matter how badly you fuck up.
Yeah, you always have you always have somebody else there for you. Much like us, where we can sit here criticizing those that are our betters. I mean, shitbags on YouTube.
Oh, so what were we talking? Oh, yeah, France committing suicide. Yeah, France is fucked. They've been fucked for a little while. Blame them for everything. This is my advice to you. You will be far happier in life. Just like the song goes, blame America. No, blame France. Also Germany.
Yeah. Also, fuck Germany, by the way.
Well, Germany very
like. Man,
they've been grappling with the French philosophy for a while, and it's clear that a lot of their philosophers were heavily influenced, but somehow they always maintained that pre-World War II, they always had a strong identity, whether you were whatever region of Germany you were from. There was sort of a nationalistic feeling that people had, and of course, since World War II, West Germany revealing the atrocities the Nazis committed, became not very nationalistic, in fact, anti-nationalistic, and that was the last bulwark the Germans had against the French philosophy, and that's where you see the explosion of like the Frankfurt School ideologies and everything. And there's always a conspiracy theory that the Soviets were helping it along in the background. Is like the CIA was using modern art as propaganda, whereas I wouldn't be too well. Actually, what's his name? Yuri Bezmenov was openly saying that they were using philosophy. Well, the Americans were using art as a weapon against Soviet culture. The Soviets were using philosophy as a weapon against Western culture.
Yeah, it's just it's a mess.
Oh, in order to sort this shit out would probably take, I don't know, a few incredibly intelligent, like Nietzsche. Trying to think.
Yeah,
Probably, let's just say Aristotle level. It would take a few Aristotle level philosophers to sort this shit out. So much dung has just been dumped on.
The more I read Nietzsche, the more I'm just kind of like, I know probably people have said this before, but I'm pretty sure he was a transcendentalist. and like he was closer to like he was closer to what I believe was a later time period or an earlier time period where in literature there was the literature movement among poets of transcendentalism, similar
To be fair, I don't know much about transcendentalism.
it was similar to naturalists, but there's two movements in like the between like the 1700s and the 1900s where there was the naturalists and then there was the transcendentalists, and they were weird because the naturalists were essentially like they were like proto-hippie, proto-bohemians, where they were very much like these kind of people that at least appeared to be very environmentally conscious and had this great love and respect for nature, but they expressed that through poetry. And then following them were the transcendentalists, where they were people who were through poetry trying to transcend humanity. And I'm sure I'm fucking a lot of this up because I haven't been able to read in a long time about them. But they were very it was all kind of like the proto-Western grasps, like proto-Westernization of Eastern Buddhist ideas and Eastern philosophy that they had started to import. And a lot of what Nietzsche's writings were just remind me a lot of what a lot of like transcendentalist literature and poetry and the themes they were going for, where a lot of people don't understand what he was trying to say, but I'm pretty sure a common thread through most of his work was that you had to fucking detach yourself from who you were to make proper judgments on other things and to try and like live your life in a way that wouldn't cause additional decay. And
well, he was a big always one of his famous lines was the will to power. His concept of you everything you do requires some sort of I guess you would call it almost transcendent force, willpower, some aspect of the soul to animate the body to do. Yeah, and I mean, he kind of was like skirting the line between totally transcending one's own humanity and also just being saying something more simply, more earthly, but still something that required a lot of focus and willpower. That was like self-actualization. Like he seemed. We would describe what he was talking about in his concept of what is the Übermensch, what is master morality, as what he was describing was what we would call a self-actualized human being.
Yeah, like that was definitely
willpower
a thing.
And knowledge.
And then people took
to identify what they need and they want and go about acquiring those things.
And then people took the basic premise of that idea and the terminology he used and twisted it into the fucking like the Nazi Übermensch idea.
Well, the Nazi Übermensch idea, my understanding, has surprisingly very little to do with, despite being the same word. The Nazis
they came up with it as a kind of a parallel concept, but Nietzsche himself did not like any of the
collectivist ideologies.
Yeah, any of the collectivist ideology. He was like he was a hardcore individualist, but his brother-in-law after his death was like a supporter of the Nazis. So he took some of his works and then revised them, and like he released newer editions of his own works, and then had like forwards in them where he was he related Nietzsche's concepts to like some of the fucking propaganda that the Nazis were spouting, to the point where like they became synonymous to a lot of people in the public eye.
Which is not at all what Nietzsche was about. As I said, he hated Nazism. Well, Nazism wasn't really around as a concept yet, but he especially despised socialism. Yeah. He recognized socialism for exactly what it was. It was a fucking snake. It was going to tempt people in, and it was going to destroy him. He basically said as much, and, well, Yeah, the problem with Nietzsche, I find, with trying to explain his work to a lot of people is it's incomplete. He
Yeah, that's very
had a
true.
mental breakdown, 2 strokes, and died long before he was
Well, there's
able
also
to.
like that period of like 2 years, or it was 2 years before he really had all of the worst symptoms of syphilis, where like this where his syphilis had made him like experience that euphoria, and he wrote like a shit ton of stuff, and then immediately was like, wait, this is wrong, and then like was too sick to correct it.
Mhm. The point is, what I find very frustrating is it's incomplete, and nobody's so far really been able to, I guess, pick up where he left off. It's interesting to see clinical psychology kind of start to move in from Freud to Jung to some of the stuff that they're talking about now. You'll hear Jordan Peterson talk about some of the stuff that's been going on in clinical psychology. It seems like bit by bit, science, so this applied science role, is picking up to where he was. He may, of course, philosophy isn't a science. You can make huge leaps of logic and hope that you're right. And a lot of philosophers are just downright wrong. I mean, we were just talking about Rousseau and Descartes and everyone. The objectivists are not the objectivists. The utilitarians are another great example of a philosophy that died out because they realized that what they were proposing was simply not viable. The people who were proposing it, read John Stuart Mill, a book literally called Utilitarianism. They kind of decided that this is not really making sense. They kept on coming to conclusions that violated their own moral standards, and they knew wouldn't lead to a stable society. So they gave up. Point is, philosophy, you can make leaps of logic, and you hope you're right. Science is a far slower, more methodical process, but you have a significantly higher chance of being correct.
Yeah.
I guess it's a case of go big or go home. So it's been interesting to see that psychology is now picking up where Nietzsche left off, and it's going to be a tough fight. But what on the Joe Rogan show, Jordan Peterson was back on, and he mentioned again this study that is yet to be published, but they were looking at personality trait openness, and as a predictor of someone becoming a social justice warrior, basically saying it's almost entirely dependent upon trait.
Yeah.
And that research, I'm kind of hoping if that research can get published and put into the public space, could really, it could cause some waves. A psychological breakdown on what's been going on, and starting to put a roadmap of how someone goes from being born to becoming this social justice warrior who is having a great deal of psychological difficulty handling the world. They're not a self-actualized human being. How does one go from, let's say you got 2 babies, for all intents and purposes they're identical. How does one baby wind up as being a manager of a successful business? You know, they're confident, they're going to the gym every day, they're driving a Porsche, they're self-actualized. And you got the other twin that's a social justice warrior. They're working some service industry job, 9 to 5. They're not dealing with the world psychologically very well. They're having panic attacks. They can't interact with other human beings because they're constantly perceiving slights against them. How do you get this disparate outcome? And if they can start associating these outcomes with these personality types, and they can start doing some research on how we get these personality types manifesting themselves, they can start to work backwards and look through childhood development, which is a pretty developed, in terms of the amount of people researching it, is a pretty developed field. And then looking at how we raise kids and how kids adopt these personality types. And I think what they're basically going to find is what the SG. I'm certain when this research comes out, they're going to have everyone screaming at them, because I'm pretty sure these people know that at that point the game is up. Because it's going to become public knowledge that everything we do to raise our kids now, from abandoning them to daycares, to these huge classrooms, to the university in elementary and high school, how the curriculum is being taught, to how university is being handled, it's almost designed to produce people with personality traits, agreeableness, which turns them into these social justice warriors. Sorry, that was a long spiel.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Though we probably should move on.
Yes, because that was more than just a little bit of tinfoil hat.
Yeah, it's fine. We always need a little bit of tinfoil. If without it, people might start taking us seriously. Do you want to
go back? Yeah, I was about to say, do you want to go back to U.S. politics or somewhere else?
No, the three things left for U.S. politics aren't really like they're major, but they're not something we can really comment on too much. We're kind of just, telling people that the Trump considering dissolving the Ninth Circuit was pretty funny. And then there's the thing with Saudi Arabia investigations, waiting to see how many people end up dead.
Yeah, that will be interesting, because it's unbelievable how much power the Saudis have accumulated in a few short years.
Well, I think they've had this power for a long time.
I'm guessing that they're
just accumulating public power.
Maybe behind closed doors, but I think a huge part of what's going on, why they're accumulating so much power, is oil reserves, of course. Yeah. But look at what's going on in Venezuela. If Venezuela's got oil reserves that are the biggest in the planet, if memory serves correctly, they're absolutely massive. So you got a lot of small producers of oil, relatively speaking. Then you've got the Saudis and OPEC, which are huge power players. Then you got the Venezuelans, who could be producing a shit ton.
I think what's going on is their surface level politicians are probably reacting to that situation. And
I wouldn't be too.
Maintain an alternate source of power than the oil market. But the thing is that nothing's really going to change with that.
I'm pretty sure that what's happening is, yes, the Saudis have had this power for a while. They've been trying to do shit like this probably for a while. I haven't really looked too much into their power plays at the United Nations, but I wouldn't be too surprised if this is not the first time they've tried to pull this bullshit. And they're only getting away with it now because of all the concerns about what could happen to Venezuela, because it looks like Venezuela is eventually going to descend into a civil war at this point.
Great. Oh, as far as they go, I don't think anything's really much going to change with them, aside from just, people bitching about it on Twitter and whatnot. Because from what it looks, like the way the economy is working out and the way the U.S. import and export market is, on paper the U.S. exports more oil than Saudi Arabia does. A lot of people think that we just buy all of this oil from Saudi Arabia to keep them catering to us as their largest buyer, so that we can have a stake and claim in the Middle East, and then in return, they basically get away with all the dumb bullshit that most Islamic countries down there are doing. But isn't it odd to you that the two biggest allies that the U.S. has, as far as non-Western allies, are Israel and Saudi Arabia, two completely diametrically opposed nation states?
Well, if I was Saudi Arabia, I would not want Israel to go away, and I also wouldn't want to pick a fight with them. And I'd also know that I need to keep in good favor with the Americans, because at this point, if the Americans walked away from Saudi Arabia, they'd be fucked.
Yeah, but we also know that Israel at this point is starting the aggressive expansion of.
I wouldn't be if I was in Israel, I'd be looking around and going. All the countries around me seem to be bit by bit completely dissolving.
Yeah,
and
which
falling into
which is
complete
why
ruin.
everyone's freaking out about it, because Netanyahu basically went to the UN and started talking about it, and it makes it sound like, you know, that they're just going to just start taking, like, just setting up shop.
I mean, why do you? I've commented before. I mean, Judaism is a remarkably durable religion.
Yeah, I told you
Like,
before why.
they are tough. Yeah, they are tough SOBs. That ideology is tough as nails. It's no surprise the Jews have been able to survive surrounded by hostile powers, outlast them, and now look like they might start expanding. Hard to imagine that just 100 years. Like, Israel is a brand spanking new country in historical terms. They basically have no power base, and in the next couple of years, we could watch them really start expanding their sphere of influence, and I wouldn't be too surprised. What Netanyahu said, he's now got friends in the his bordering countries, so I wouldn't be too surprised if the Egyptians in their current state are looking to play nice with Israel. The Jordanians have been actually playing fairly nice with Israel for a while. If I was Lebanon, I would be desperately looking to play nice with Israel. Because Israel is a significantly smaller threat than ISIS.
Yeah.
Lebanon would be a little. I'd be looking to. If I was Lebanon, I'd be, to be clear, looking to play nice with Israel, but also keeping my eye on Hezbollah, because I don't want to be too nice, because then I got to deal with Hezbollah being asshole.
Yeah.
And as much as politically it might be convenient to get rid of Hezbollah and like have the Lebanese army double team Hezbollah, that would cause a lot of long-term problems for Lebanon, or who knows, even I should come to no never mind, I retract that one. That would be dumb. What am I saying? For a moment I forgot how popular Hezbollah was within Lebanon.
Yeah.
They do a lot of PR stuff.
Yeah, that's something that's certainly weird, is how tremendously good the Arab world has become at viral media.
Well, it's also basic stuff like during the last fighting on the Golan Heights and overall of that, the Israel started shelling Lebanon, and of course, your Hezbollah being embedded within civilians, the Israelis shelled some civilian areas because that's how war goes, guys. War crimes, yeah. Listen, war is a crime, and what do you do when the enemy's firing fucking rockets at your city centers or in city centers themselves? You blow the hell out of their city centers, because fuck, that's war for you. Anyways, when it comes to warfare, you're already past the moral Rubicon.
Yeah.
You've already given in to evil. You might as well just end it fucking quickly.
Well, like anytime if you talk about war in Israel, immediately and anybody, immediately it's just nothing but the fucking never-ending. I mean, this is going to be cruel to say, really, but like it's the never-ending pity party from the Palestinians, where it's like, yeah, the Israelis kind of, you know, act like the fucking Nazis about some of the stuff. They have like the most advanced military in the world. Like, we keep saying we have the most advanced military in the world, but, you know, really, when you talk about like applied military, and like the applications of military technology and shit, like the Israelis are the ones that are constantly using those new bombs and new tanks and trying out, you know, the laser-based anti-missile defense systems and all this other shit. And
there's a Merkava tank?
Huh?
I'm trying to remember their current mainline battle tank.
Yeah, their current MBT is fucking nuts. But
it's a very different concept than what most powers have been going with.
Yeah, because they actually understand the kind of warfare, like they're trying to design a tank for asymmetrical warfare, whereas, you know, every other
They
power
also realize something very fundamental here, and I just want to interject this one. They realize that a good tank crew is worth more than the tank.
Yeah, that's also true. Well, I mean, that's the thing about Israel is that, like, because of the position they're in, they don't actually have nearly as much corruption in their military and like in their military infrastructure as any other power does. And because they have such a manpower shortage, and that like they even have like they have women fully integrated into their military structure. And as many problems as that usually brings, they don't have nearly as many of them because they're in that kind of situation where they're like, we are literally surrounded by enemies all the time forever. Get your fucking shit together. And like, it's not nearly as bad as it is with any other country because, they're dealing with that, that they're dealing with that that reality. That the like we were saying earlier, necessity is the mother of invention. And as far as the rest of the shit goes, it's like I did say it's a never-ending pity party. At the same time, like it is pretty horrible to see these the people who get caught in the crossfire, the Palestinians that the Israelis don't really give a shit about, that are obvious citizens that just get caught in the crossfire, that are running around holding garbage bags full of ground meat, and you realize that that's their kids that got hit by some of these new bombs and everything. But at the same time, it's like the Palestinians keep putting fucking RPG sites in hospitals. They keep doing shit like that, and it's nothing but non-stop dirty fighting over there. And no one's
to be
been
fair,
reporting
this
on
is
it
something
properly,
that
really.
everyone loves to denounce Israel for their bullshit, and I'm kind of sitting there going, it's like, yes, Israel does pull a lot of bullshit. So do the Palestinians, and let's not forget how many times Israel has proposed a peace treaty. Yes, I know the Palestinians have to make some fucking concessions. Every time the Palestinians have given the Israelis the middle finger and said, no, we won't settle. And the Israelis are like, well, guess what? That's the price of peace. We want peace, and guess what? We're in the position of dominance, and at a certain point, you have to fucking acknowledge that, guess what, Palestine? You ain't getting rid of Israel anytime soon.
Yeah.
And they keep on refusing it, and I'm just kind of looking at
them.
Well,
I mean, they don't have any other option. Because, the biggest problem with the whole thing is that Palestinians are still second-class citizens in Israel. Like,
yes, and you also look at all the stabbings and bullshit, and I kind of, again, understand, like, yeah, it's immoral, but also, given the situation,
they're going to be dealing with that insurgency situation forever, but, like, that's the thing. Until the Israelis make an actual attempt to integrate the Palestinians into their society instead of just, bullshitting left, right, and center, having Bibi Netanyahu, having Bibi show up at the UN and do stand-up every Friday about how, we have made got it. Every time I do Bibi, it always sounds like I'm just doing an angry Bernie impression.
Every time I kind of look at every time I look at the Palestinians, I'm like, yeah, I know it fucking sucks, but at a certain point, you just have to
we have made every compromise possible. I understand where you're coming from.
Just admit
the
defeat
issue is
and just
the
be
issue
pragmatic
is
about this.
They don't have any other options though, Garom, because it's not like this is not like the way it is in the U.S. where I don't know, to make a really asymmetrical comparison, it's like it's like the race relations problems where things are bad in the black community. Obviously, that's why there's so many people that feel like they're getting jilted and fucked over. But the vast majority of the people who are leading those movements are these shitbirds in university that have all this money and everything that are trying to they're trying to be the surrogate fucked over parts of the masses. And in the case of these race relations and everything, at the end of the day, legally speaking, they're all still citizens of the U.S. There's no legal hardline roadblock that is keeping them fucked. There's an economic problem that's keeping them fucked. That's definitely there. But the thing is the issue is that they have let themselves, and I'm not saying they have let themselves like they're entirely at fault. They're the victimized party here. But they have let themselves buy into the narrative that the economy is fucking them over because they've been legally fucked over because of their race. When if they actually started focusing on the economic issues and they actually started focusing on the corporatists that keep purveying lies and everything, there would be some upward motion in getting everything to a better stance.
And that's what I want to see the Palestinians doing.
But
They seem to be spending
all that said, the reason why I said this is an asymmetrical...
They can barely feed themselves, and they're
but at
buying
the same time,
rockets to fly into Israel. That's money they should be doing to build hospitals and schools.
Yeah, but at the same time, that won't do anything, because at the end of the day, they're still going to be second-class citizens to a country that used to be theirs and is theirs no longer.
Yes, like, and that situation isn't changing any time. Again, I know it's fucking cold. I know it's not ideal, but I look at the situation and go, at a certain point, you need to learn to be pragmatic. You need to learn how to roll with the punches. And yes, the situation sucks. I feel sorry for you, Palestinians. You got fucked. You got fucked in the ass. Fucked with the ass without any loop. Like, there is no excuse for what we did to you, but seriously, this is the situation now, and when life gives you lemons, you need to make lemonade. You need to make lemonade, and the longer they wait to start making lemonade, the more people who are going to suffer.
I'm not saying when life gives you lemons, you can't make lemonade. I'm saying they don't have any sugar or water.
Then get some. It's a fucking long ladder, guys, and I'm sorry that we cast you down all the way at the bottom, but you got to start climbing sometime. You can't just sit at the bottom of that ladder being pissed off. At some point, you have to start climbing, making your way back.
I still can't blame him for it, though. I mean, I'm a cruel and stupid motherfucker, but come on, like once again, the asymmetrical comparison. At least in the U.S., you know, there's open and easy access to shit like smartphones and the internet and TV and everything everywhere you go. The different communities that think that they're being treated so badly like this, primarily the black community, at least understands that there's like a larger macro, like will at least have access to devices that will give them the information. That'll give them, like, you know, data streams that show them they are being, they are part of a larger picture. In in Palestine and the Middle East, you can't really say that. There's a lot of these people that are stuck in isolated villages that, you know one or two countries over, there's drone strikes always going on, and think that there's, like, you know, some cross, there's some cross ethnic unification of them along religious lines that they have to follow, and they have no idea that, like, how small and untenable their position is.
Well, that is the propaganda they're being just shoveled every single fucking day.
I honestly think that, like, the core problem doesn't just rely with either of them. I mean, I've probably already said the core problem multiple times, but I mean, in this case, it's probably because the people at the top of everything, the top officials in the U.S., the top people in the different terrorist organizations, and the top people in Israel, they don't actually want to stop these problems. So
because all their political power evaporates overnight.
Yeah, so they're not going to take the steps to fix the problem. Like, you can cut off the head of a terrorist organization, there's always going to be another one, but it's like you still have that moment where there's like it'll provide something like a moment of clarity for people when there's not the constant onslaught of propaganda for it. But, you know, until there's no more profit to be made on this situation, it's probably just going to continue being bad until there's a strike back against these authority figures themselves that are profiting off of it. I just can't bring myself to say just get on that ladder, because, like, you know, yeah, pity party and everything, but, like, you know, the people who are throwing the pity party are usually the ones that do have access to Twitter and everything, and they're usually the ones that don't actually care about Israelites or anybody else there, or their own countrymen, and more often than not, they're usually people that are you know, in implicit support of those terrorist organizations that, you know, want that think that yeah, way to scare him off. Tyler just popped on and wanted to see if he could come in here, and he's like asking what we're talking about so he doesn't come in cold, and Garom just goes Israel. And Tyler being German, I bet he's just gonna be like, all right, fuck, I can't be on there, guys. I can't be saying nothing. Like, I knew it.
He doesn't want to talk about it.
We're not. I cannot say nothing, guys.
No matter what he says, he's fucked.
Yeah, because Germany. Germany.
I'm not making a moral argument. I'm just, in my mind, if the Palestinians start to help them out, they would probably do more to ease the amount of terrorism. So much of the terrorism is born out of a sense of resentment. It's that identitarian feeling like you're constantly being oppressed. Yeah. And what happens the second you start to learn how to fend for yourself and to basically
my point here is still the point. Resentful. Well, as a point of order is still like in this specific case though, they the way Israel actually operates on the ground level. Not as a whole, but like factions within Israel and how they've operated and the decisions they've made, especially people like Netanyahu, where they're just bullshit artists, outright have been actually oppressing them. It's like this isn't the reason why the Palestine thing has persisted for so long is because these terrorist cells didn't actually have to try with the propaganda.
No. Yeah, I know that the Israelis handed this narrative to the jihadists on a silver platter. I still look at the Palestinians and going, listen, I know the Israelis can be fucking assholes, but what you're doing isn't helping yourself. Stop giving a fuck about them. Stop caring about Israel. Let them be fucking assholes. You've already got a lot of international sympathy on your side. And listen, as much as you think they're assholes, don't forget your own political leadership's manipulating you too. But then again, identity politics is so fucking powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, I can't imagine how obscenely powerful it is there. Because, like, we've already seen how hard it is to just get, people on, like, all right, like, if you consider, like, the alt-right, like, the, bottom bitch of the, the levels of identitarian politics when it comes to, like, white identity, then, like, imagine how obscenely powerful that shit is for, like, Jewish identity in Israel when it's, like, literally, like, it's not like, oh, we have this, like, the white identity one, like, they scare people with just, the implicit threats to like the implicit shit and the white violence meme and shit like that from like all of the migrant crisis by itself. Imagine how obscenely powerful like identitarian politics are when you're in a place like Israel that is an outright ethno-state that is under attack by every neighbor against it because it's an ethno-state. Like,
yep.
Like that's another thing is that like Palestine's also just in such a fucked situation because here's the kind of like one of the unspoken things about the Middle East. None of the ethnic groups in those various countries like each other. Fucking none of them. Especially like the fucking Turks hate everybody else's guts. Everybody hates the Turks. The apparently everyone except for like, Westerners think that Kurds are like pure evil or something because wanting to be left alone to your mountain herds and stuff is apparently like just the worst form of evil ever. And like, Jordanians don't really get along with Arabians. Arabians think that they're better than everybody else. Arabians aren't even real Arabians anymore.
So basically nothing's changed in
the
about
Yemeni are constantly
years.
getting drone strikes, so there's not many of them left to fucking complain about all the other guys around them. But the thing is that
everyone fucking hates the Yemenis, it seems.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like Yemen used to just be the fucking like the used car lot of the Middle East. That was the meme during as far back as Desert Storm, and then later on like. That was the joke. It was like it's the used car lot of the Middle East. It was just this giant trading post masquerading as a country during shock and awe and Iraqi freedom and all the other shit that went on in like 2004 and like between 9/11 and 2004. And then just out of nowhere, it was like, oh yeah, just fuck Yemen. We're just gonna drone strike the fuck out of it. And, like, you know, Pakistan is there in the peripheral, Afghanistan is there in the peripheral, and then some of the, like, ex-Soviet ones like Kyrgyzstan. And
I'm trying to remember it was because they were kind of a lawless state. A lot of terrorist cells set up training camps and moved on in there because, of course, a used car lot. There were a lot of lots they could set up in, and they would be left the fuck alone to go be terrorists. So yeah, they got droned, and the Houthi rebels took over, who were Shiites, and of course the Saudis, who are Sunnis, couldn't let that go. So the Sunnis started bombing the Shiites, and the Shiites decided to cross the border and.
I mean, it's just a giant shit pit because, like, we have like we have the fucking triangle. It's like the fucking Bermuda Triangle of Doom. Like, one point is Israel, one point is Saudi Arabia, and a third point is Iran, and all three of them are funding what, like, is by definition terrorist operations in other countries for ideological goals. The Iranians and the Iraqis are the ones that have, like, the not Iraqis, Iranians and the Saudi Arabians have you know, very, very religiously minded ones. The Israelis have ones that are you know, preemptive strike, like under the justifications of preemptive strike defenses and, you know, expansionist ideas. But, like, between the three of them, they just, you know, keep churning the muck between all of them while they get funding from the U.S. and other states in the West. And then the only ones that are secular countries there are, like, these dictatorships like Iraq and Libya, and we take out everybody, and we take out those guys. We're gonna go.
It's almost like we want to fuck the Middle East in the ass until the oil's gone.
Fuck it in the ass until the oil comes out.
The last thing you want.
Texas tea.
Think about it this way: if you've got all of this oil money, and you actually became a successful country, how powerful you could be in the Middle East.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I said earlier, what it seems to be the case with, as far as, like, imports and exports in the West, we don't actually need all the oil from those countries. We're just pretending we do so we can keep a stranglehold on the oil economy. I mean, and like Styx says before, the petrol dollar isn't even real. The petrol dollar really means the aircraft carrier dollar. And I mean, it's just a mess because there's just nobody. The issue with it, and we're probably guilty of this already, is that everyone involved with commentating on everything keeps trying to make each individual faction out as this monolith. When, like, and especially in the case of like the US, there's like a million different sub-factions all vying for power inside each of these individual countries that are all, you know, that are all trying to take shortcuts by fucking around with this conflict.
The problem there is the resolution of consideration, the sort of resolution of detail you would need in order to fucking make sense of that level of intricacy, to give a complete picture. There's no way you could be able to convey it in a timely fashion. It must be a nightmare for people in the intelligence community who get given the Middle Eastern assignment. It must be fucking hell on them. I'm sure their boss walks up to them and starts dumping butler boxes worth of paper on their desks. It's like, here's everything you need to, it's Friday, here's all the reading you need to do by Monday in order to do your new job. And it's just dossier after dossier after dossier. Yeah, the Middle East is complex, and it's just fucking impossible to talk about it on that level of resolution, let alone we've all got fucking 9-to-5 jobs. We can't be experts on this one. We can get the broader movements, but the details, I mean, that's beyond a full-time job. I mean, I'm sure there's people in Langley that never go home because they're just trying to fucking figure it out.
Yeah, and there's also people in Langley who never go home because they live in a fucking... They live in the death cult bunkers underneath the building. We're worshipping the fucking Reaper scythe that they have up there on their wall. Fucking Langley's nuts, dude.
Yeah, that would be. Yes, we've all heard the tinfoil hat rumors about that building.
Well, I mean, the issue with it, the real issue with it is like the amount of shit that we know on record the CIA has done that is completely fucking retarded is like makes it so that it's like next to nothing you can say about the CIA anymore is tinfoil hat when you really think about it. I mean, the Bay of Pigs invasion alone should have convinced most people of that.
Well, there's always the Bay of Takonka.
And then
what they actually tell people to do versus what they actually tell people what happened.
and then like even just the fucking dumb shit that they did that somehow worked during World War II, that like the dumb shit that they did during World War II that somehow worked when it was like the predecessor to the CIA. It was like the OSS, like the Shadow Invasion, where they had a whole bunch of inflatable tanks so that the Nazi spy planes would think that they had like thousands of like they made like 15 inflatable tanks for every one tank they had, so that the Nazi spy planes would fly over and be like, holy fuck, that's a shitload of tanks.
The CIA.
But then they had like the other shit like they did in collusion with the Office of Ungentlemanly Warfare, where they were like, all right, we're going to poison Hitler with estrogen because nobody will notice estrogen in all of the fucking like shit we've somehow gotten to him. It'll make him less aggressive. In that way, we'll get the edge on the war. And it's like, joke's on you guys. He was already like quasi a hermaphrodite.
What?
Oh, you didn't know about this?
No, I mean, I don't study Hitler
what is the most
religiously.
common... All right, there's two commonalities that Hitler has with Napoleon.
Kind of short.
No, Napoleon actually wasn't that short. That was a meme.
Yeah, he was technically average height or something.
Yeah. So what do you think? What were the two commonalities? One of them is very obvious.
He invaded Russia.
Yes, they did the same fucking bullshit with Russia, and then after they died, it was found out that they had one undescended testicle and feminized breasts.
You always wonder why Napoleon had his hand in his coat. I think we just found out why.
That's horrible.
Yeah, he's fucking dead and he's goddamn Hitler. I can make fun of him.
Well, you were making fun of Napoleon, but...
Well, fuck that guy too. I mean, again, I blame the French for everything, but Napoleon was kind of woke.
I mean, Napoleon was ahead of his time as far as military science was, but I mean, with like all military science, it's shit that like in hindsight looks like makes that dude just look like the fucking brightest retard in the barn.
And I also like to point out, for the record, once again, British pragmatism wins in the end.
At that and hemorrhoids. But as far as Napoleon goes, like fucking, like when you look at his what he did that he was so tactically brilliant for, like the vast bulk of it was that he was like, wait guys, artillery's fucking good. And everyone else was like, that's expensive. And he was like, no, we need to have more cannons and mortars than anybody else.
He did start his career off as a artillery officer.
Yeah, and that's why, like, that was the majority of why he was, like, so good. Because everybody else at the time during Western warfare was, like, didn't think artillery could be that effective for some fucking reason. Or like in the cases where they did, they were like, well, it can't, like, it's really fucking expensive. And he was like, no, all right, no, we need lots of cavalry, and then we're gonna need lots and lots of mortars and cannons.
Yeah, pretty much. Kind of raises some questions about the Americans these days, but I just got my money if the Americans ever do go to war with anybody remotely as capable as they are, they're going to find that the air power is not as deciding of a factor as they thought it would be.
Well, that's already a meme.
It's been interesting. I watched 2 videos the other day, and it was a analysis of the current American fighter designs versus their contemporaries in China and Russia. And
Dude, I remember, way back in the day. Well, this wasn't exactly back in the day, but like a few years back, I had a group of friends that played like the war game series of games like religiously. And one of the things that came up in the game that ended up, doing that thing that, hardcore Vidya and tabletop games always do, where they bloom into real life arguments that are actually like really on point. They were talking about why like Apaches were somehow better than like F-18s and shit, and like in the forum, and it turned out that like because the game's designers had done so much insane amount of research into shit and like getting every autistic little detail right and everything, there were people in the forums that just pulled out these studies where they were like, yeah, so the U.S. Army ran simulations in like the early 2000s and the 90s of like jet fighters on like attack helicopter, like jet fighters versus attack helicopters for some reason. And, like, the attack helicopters were actually more effective. Or were just, like just somehow. It was like, what the fuck? Like, because just all of our fucking air power is just so over-designed and so ridiculously fragile these days. Like, there's a kind of a reason why that during the Cold War, especially in the 80s, the fucking, what was it? The absolutely fucking nuts Russian attack helicopter that was all like a Russian assault carrier helicopter.
The Hind.
Yeah, the Hind was a meme, like became like this obscene meme because it was mostly true. Like that thing was just a tank with rotors. Like they didn't give a fuck.
It had its fair share of problems.
Yes.
And also being in Rambo certainly does help.
Yeah, and I mean also. You're an engineer, so you're about to tell me about how rotors are gay, and should never be used ever again, or something.
Well, I was about to say the American design ethos right now is all about that stealth.
Yeah, even though stealth functionally doesn't work.
Yeah, and well, they completely are missing the point on stealth. Is it gives you a minor advantage, and the articles I was basically quickly glancing through, basically the argument being made was the advantage the Americans' stealth technology gives them is very quickly negated. Yeah, sure, it might let you be undetected for longer, but basically once you get into an engagement, once you engage with the enemy, you lose your stealth capabilities, and it becomes all about your countermeasure systems. And the Americans simply have not invested in countermeasure systems the way their competition has.
Yep.
So they've got these expensive fighters that, well, it might be awesome and cool if they're fighting some second-rate power like fucking Iraq or Iran. But the second you go toe-to-toe with a force like China or Russia, your advantages disappear very quickly.
Yeah, well, all right, that's arguable because Russia and China can't actually go toe-to-toe with us. That's also a meme. They do not have the financial backing. Well, yeah, like, but I mean, like, their short-term conflict is basically, like, with the stuff that they would have, would basically be, like, the same as, like, the war in Iraq all over again.
Yeah,
like,
if memory serves, if the Russians ever decide to invade Europe, they would basically need to conquer all of Europe in about 3 to 4 months. No, it was 2 to 3 months. Yeah. Because the Americans, and this is the same, of course, this is assuming, let's say the Russians decide to invade. The Americans, of course, need to deploy their forces. The thing is, when the Americans can deploy all their forces, they're fucking unstoppable. You are not going to beat the U.S. Army, because this is exactly what the U.S. Army is constructed to do, is to fight other first world powers. So the idea is, if NATO can hold Russia for 2 to 3 months, and not let them get past Berlin, then victory is inevitable.
But it's highly doubtful they would even do that. I mean,
no,
especially with the whole, well, not just that, but I mean, like, just with the whole, like, Russia is also is the paper bear. Like,
Yes, the other concept of Poland would once again get completely fucking flattened. Poland would turn into a fucking first world bloodbath.
Call up Sabaton, tell them someone called Poland a bitch. Watch them we're turning this tour bus around.
You would have the German, French, and British army going toe to toe with the Russian army in grand maneuver warfare, like the likes of which we probably haven't even seen. Like Battle of Kursk level conflict, but across a battlefront that would probably be 3 to 4 sides.
I can agree with that. They would probably be fine.
The scale of the fighting would be enormous.
Yeah, but it's not just that though. It's like here's the thing: the Russian economy does not have the fucking ability currently, just because their whole debt.
The Russian economy is smaller than the Italian economy right now.
Yeah, like the Russian economy does not have the juice to actually mobilize for total war like that. Like the thing about Russia is that they have essentially turned into the British in levels of military operations. They do not have a massive presence. They have, very decent. They have very, very good to very decent, or very decent to like the best rather, technological advantages as far as like vehicles and counter like ECM, ECCM, counter and like other countermeasure systems, and they have very, very, very. I'm pretty sure the best in the world. Specialized surgical strike infantry. Spetsnaz probably are better than the SAS or SEALs or anybody that SOCOM can toss out there, but they don't have really much else aside from that, and they don't have the economy, like we said, they don't have the economy to keep doing that. Whereas like the U.S., the entire economy is basically like, oh, we're going to war, time to fucking like nuke the earth. And
I don't think that's quite true of the Americans. They've become so fucking bloated on a military scale.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We're like we'll probably end up in like this weird inverse situation of World War I, where we're going to have a massive quantity of really poorly trained soldiers and next to no like support for them. But at the same time, we will have just such an obscene. We'll have like next to no support for them in the sense that like they have no supply lines, because like we have logistics out the ass. What we're probably going to have an issue with, if that ever came to it, would just be they are actual like our tanks, jets, fighters, and helicopters and whatever else just don't stack up. But it'll probably be like World War II in that sense, where we'll just have 15 of them.
I get
for every
feeling...
one they have.
Get the feeling that two situations are going to arise with the Americans. Is what you just described is, just to summarize quickly, is one, the Americans are going to find out that a lot of the weapon systems that they've been investing in heavily are, on a conceptual level, not effective anymore against a modern military. But because they haven't had a conflict with a technologically equivalent power, they've been running off of simulations. Simulations are based entirely on fucking assumptions. No one actually knows how these weapon systems are going to behave exactly, given the tactics that are utilized. There is the next thing. I'm pretty sure the Americans are going to find out that tactically they've gotten incredibly fucking lazy. So in World War II, they had a situation where their tanks weren't up to snuff, and the Americans, they knew the Sherman, the M3 Grant, and then the M4 Sherman tank were not anywhere near on a design level as sophisticated, effective as the Germans.
No, that's wrong. That is wrong. That is totally wrong.
The Germans had a more sophisticated system, however, they were completely
sophisticated in the sense that it was
fucking
complicated and stupid, but like. Here's the thing. The best tank of the war, widely agreed, was like, the Panther III? The medium tank that they had?
No, the
T-34 was like retarded. The T-34 was some insane shit. So was the KV-12. But like...
Tank okay, can we... what are we talking... Are we talking
look.
aggregate or
Here's the
individually?
issue. Here's the issue.
In aggregate or individually?
in aggregate, the best tank of the war considered for like its performance in all the places it was the Panther, apparently. But
yeah,
here's the thing: the Sherman being a shitbox was a meme. That is a meme that has persisted in the military historian community forever, and like to the point where I know actual tankers I know tankers and other servicemen that were in the U.S. Marines and the Army that have like known to disprove that whole shit. I think Tyler's telling us a Panther and the Puma are same thing in English, but
Really, because it's called a warthog.
What?
Red versus blue joke.
Oh. Fuck, man, that's old. You brought me back.
To the exciting world of 2005.
When Halo 3 was still good. Wait, Halo 3 wasn't out in 2005.
No, it
was Halo 2.
Halo 2.
Yeah, fuck me, man. Jesus Christ. All right, as an aside, Microsoft put Halo 3 on the computer. Yeah. By the way, the Scorpion is like the best/worst tank design I've ever seen in sci-fi. But moving on, the Sherman was actually a fantastic tank for what it was supposed to be. Like the Sherman was like an upper end light tank to a medium tank that was meant to be. It was ergonomically designed, and it was meant to operate in pretty much every terrain. It was like, when I say ergonomically designed, it was considered by Russian and German engineers after the fact. They were like, wow, this tank is way better to fucking drive and fight in than our tanks.
Yeah,
because the German tanks was like, I'm going to enter into this clock machine now.
Listen,
Hans.
that's what happens when you have it designed by automotive engineers. They make something that's easy to produce and easy to use.
Yeah, and all right, so the Japanese tanks aren't even on the scale. Like the Shermans just beat ass, but like the Shermans, here's the thing: they were designed to work in the Pacific, the African, and the Western Front. Like, come on.
Which is weird because they actually used the M3 Grant a lot in the Pacific Theater because they didn't need the Shermans. Well, except as the Crocodile flamethrower version.
Yeah, that was
got good use out of those flamethrowers in the Pacific Theater.
Dude, man, the Pacific Front must have been horrific when you actually think about it, because
the Pacific was okay.
The Pacific Front might have. Tyler wants to hop in. All right, Tyler, you're gonna have to jump on top of us on the. Here's the issue, Tyler. It turns out we checked all of Croatia, and we checked all of Croatia and like everywhere else in Central Eastern Europe, and they only manufacture LOVEseat couches. This is the only one in all of Sarajevo, so you're gonna have to sit on top of Garom.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so here's my argument on why the Sherman wasn't the best tank. I'm not talking about when I think of what's the best tank.
I didn't say it was the best tank, but I'm saying the meme that the people saying that it was a shit tank was a meme. Like,
well, it's fucking, look how tall the damn thing is.
That's also like, but look at it actually had fucking sloped armor. Look at how fucking fast it was for what it did. Look at, like, they fixed on the fly all of the fucking problems with it, and it still became a meme. The guy,
but by the time they got to the Easy 8,
they didn't need the Easy 8. That was
also
also a meme.
They still built the Easy 8, and it was still better than the T-34-85.
That was also a meme. The problem that they had was that, all right, the original cannon it was armed with was not good armor penetration. But they didn't need They didn't need that much because the tank was designed as an infantry support tank, and it was fucking awesome in that role. Because they had, dude, do you know, what round the American and British tankers used to take out the majority of German tanks during the war actually was?
I'm guessing it was the HE.
No, the HE was what they used for support. They used smoke, because their smoke rounds were when they didn't understand how white phosphorus worked well enough to make white phosphorus shells. So they had white phosphorus smoke shells that they would just be like, oh shit, that's a tiger, smoke it out, and we're gonna drive off. And they later realized that like when they smoked it out,
was a fucking tiger.
When they didn't realize later is that when they smoked it out, the white phosphorus would hit, like if they got the shell close enough, the phosphorus would get on the tank and it would burn so hot it would burn off all the optics and like on occasion light fuel lines. And they were just like, fuck this, and the tank crew would just leave. Like they would just get out and run off. And like fucking like the meme of like the fucking Ronson, like the Ronson meme that they had going around because, oh no, if you're in a tank and it gets shot, it's immediately going to burst into flames and you're going to burn because we use gas instead of kerosene.
You seem to think that I thought the Sherman was a total piece of shit.
Well, I'm sorry. I made an assumption. But generally speaking, when people want to talk about the Shermans, they're always like, yeah, this tank was garbage. And it's like, fuck you. This tank was great.
No, I'd say it's number 2, maybe 3 on the list. For me, number 1's actually the Panzer IV.
Well, I don't really think that. I mean, I like the Pumas / the Panthers, but I thought that the main Panzers were good.
For what it was, so here's my large.
The Stugs were ridiculous.
The Stugs aren't tanks. Fuck you.
I know,
they're
but they're
assault guns.
They were better than tanks, though. They were so cheap.
Well,
I was supposed to define better.
The Kampfpanzerwagen IV was a fucking joke, especially when Germany hit on the T-34.
Yeah, no kidding.
The tank was simply devastatingly stupid because this 35 mm cannon of the Kampfpanzerwagen IV, the projectiles they simply bounced off the T-34.
Yeah,
if memory serves, in Operation Barbarossa, most of the Panzer III still had the 37. Some had been upgunned to the 50, and
there was an account of one of the German generals when they first encountered.
Shorty.
Yeah, there was an account. I'm trying to remember who it was. Tyler, I bet you probably know this. But there was a German general who, like during Operation Barbarossa, they got encountered the T-34s, and he was like, yeah, Panzers are doing nothing. One of them busted through all of our lines and we couldn't stop it. It finally stopped when the fucking flak cannons on the mobile on like the forward operating base shot it, and we were like, oh my god, what was that? Like they were sitting there like, what the fuck was that thing?
Yes. That was actually the only way of stopping a T-34. They used the so-called 8.8 or the 88mm flak cannon, and that was the only thing of stopping a T-34 at that point.
Can you imagine how they felt when they were encountering the KV-1?
Yeah, well, no, the KV-1 and the KV-2. There was at one point that there was a KV-2 that held off an entire German like an entire German division for like 2 days by itself on a bridge, and they were like, we like the only way they stopped it from killing people was like making it run out of ammunition, and then they were like, we're not taking this bridge, we're just gonna blow it up, and called in air support to blow up the bridge, and they still couldn't cross the river.
There was a account of a trio, I think it was, of KV-1s taking on an entire German armored column, winning. And there's a picture, I should dig it up, and the KV-1 must have taken like 50 hits. The front, it's dented everywhere with 37 millimeters. I mean, the column I don't think included any of the upgunned. If the upgunned Panzer IIIs with the 50 millimeter got in on the side and rear armor of a T-34 or KV-1, they could knock it out, and that's what kept the Germans going through Operation Barbarossa, was their vastly superior tank capabilities. But just to go back, I mean, the Germans fucked up with the Panther and the Tiger. If they had stuck to their guns of continuing with their mantra of medium tanks like the Panzer IV, and had not gone all that much bigger than the IV when they were building the Panther, and had incorporated sloped armor into the design, they could have really had something. But they fucked up with the Panther. They should have kept it simpler.
Well, the Panther in the idea, like I already stated in the text chat, it was basically a T-35 knockoff. The problem was they went so heavily on the production quality that they couldn't push out the things too much. And in addition to that, there was the mantra we need to have the superior weapon. That's the reason why they came up with the Tiger, and the Tiger was utter shit. It was simply just a mystical weapon in the terms that it had that 88mm flak cannon onto it, and when a Tiger hit something, it stopped existing. And
Yeah,
that was
but
basically
like
the
that
myth of
was
the
the
tank.
only thing it had going for it.
Yes,
It
yes,
was
indeed.
basically a mobile pillbox.
Well,
And
The-
that
the
should have been
the
how
biggest
they
problem
fucking
was
used it.
that's more accurate than you think, because it had like the issue with most German tanks at that time was they were just so poorly engineered from the perspective of like the actual like engine and the treads and everything that they kept having mechanical problems where they would break down. Like more Tigers were taken out of commission by their own just, mechanical flaws of having to operate in not France because they didn't account for any of that.
And the Germans could not figure out their fucking logistics, and they would be bombed, and
Yeah.
everything was going wrong. There was it was the Tiger development project when they had the Herschel and the Mercedes versions on
Yeah.
the trials, and the Mercedes version literally burst into flames because the engine broke.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even the final version, that tank was so ridiculously underpowered. The first
Well, yeah,
60-ton tank, and they put in a 400 horsepower engine, and it wasn't a diesel engine with a lot of torque. It was a fucking gasoline engine.
I thought it
And
was kerosene.
No, it was a gasoline, and despite the fact of being the first vehicle ever having brake discs, they were a fucking joke because that fucking tank was weighing in with 60 tons. There was nothing which could stop that thing, even with brake discs. It was the idea was awesome in itself. Yes, there were a lot of good ideas, but the execution was an utter joke. No, especially that despite the fact that they had the Panther, they went back to the boxy design, and so they needed to have at least 10 centimeter thick steel for armor plating.
Yeah, because
And
like for some
it
reason their
was-
designers were like allergic to the idea of slopes.
I don't think for the Germans being as smart as they were engineering wise, the fact that they didn't figure out sloped armor is a touch embarrassing.
No. I don't think it's. All right. I mean, all right. Me and Tyler have kind of sparred about this before. I still think that German engineering is kind of like a half meme. And I mean, I fully admit I'm not like I don't think that it's like I don't think the Germans are, as a people, as great as engineering as everyone says, but at the same time, I don't think that they're like trash or anything. But as far
even
as
if they weren't, even if they weren't fucking trash, the fact that
No.
everyone,
Hang
with
on.
the exception of the Brits, figured it out.
Well, it's not that the Brits. It's not that Brits are figured out or anybody else. I think the problem they had nothing to do with them being German. I think the problem, or like a German engineering meme. I think the problem that they had, and this is something that like you actually learn about. I'm sorry, Tyler. I know I'm like hurting you, but like
No,
I'm gonna.
just listen. I'm by myself an engineer, and I know what I'm capable of, and I know where Germans are good at and what we are actually good at. The engineering itself, the German one, isn't that special. What is special that we can produce it on a costly manner. That is what German engineering today is about.
I thought
but
it was
we
about
still have-
precision and patience.
Yes, but that is the costly manner that we nowadays do understand where to focus on. We need to learn it like we started to learn it in the 80s, but nowadays we are pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But current German engineering is making something in a country like Germany, which has ridiculously high wages, still on a competitive price level.
Yeah, that is a big challenge when you put it that way. But that's neither here nor there. This is something actually like, all right, I'm not saying, and this I'm probably gonna get laughed out laughed out of the fucking room for this before if any people don't think about it. But this is something that it's like I'm basically gonna go full Thrawn on. Something that you learn actually through art and studying art as far as how, you know, fascist societies operated, was that they had this insane idea of, like, they took, especially like the Mussolini's fascist, Flanges fascists, and then the Nazis. They had the futurist perspective. They did the futurism thing where they believed in form over function, basically. Like, they had the first modern, like, corporatist system, like, of you know, what is akin to our modern corporatist system of today, of letting, you know, the market, what was essentially the marketing department, make design decisions for R&D. They had propagandists making design decisions for engineers and stuff.
Well, I wouldn't agree onto that in Germany because there was always a competition of design bureaus. But I have to agree that a lot of how shall I call it, personal favors have been done during that time, especially when it came to tank design, because at some point they tried to stroke the ego of Hitler, basically, because do you know the rat, that 180, not rat, the mouse,
the mouse,
180,
that
the
obscene
180
thing,
ton design,
the Bane blade.
It was simply to stroke the ego of Adolf Hitler, and even more the idea of the rat, the 1,000-ton tank. It was actually proposed by ThyssenKrupp, which was building the battleships. And Hitler simply wanted to have big, huge fucking guns, or weapons in general, which were for attacking. Hitler didn't like the idea of defending. And when they got the trick of what he wanted to, they started basically to develop that shit. For example, like the Tiger, which was an utter shit tank. Let's be serious.
Well, yeah, at that point, the German engineers were just jacking themselves off.
Yeah.
Yeah. The exception from the rule were the plane designers. The plane design of the Germans during World War II was fucking genius. Not in terms of performance, the Mustang or the Mitsubishi, what the fuck, or the how it's called, the Spitfire. They were awesome planes, but what was fucking amazing, especially when you look into the reports of the Americans, how easy it was to maintain the German planes. For example, if you wanted to simply check the engine oil in Germany, there was a special compartment just opening up. You can look it up, or changing the oil. It was done in like 30 minutes. The downtime of a Focke-Wulf was like 2 hours, and as far as I know, the Mustang could be down up to 2 days for maintenance. That was basically the genius of the Luftwaffe. But the tanks, they lost that track when they basically discovered the T-34. That thing basically shook the ego of the German Wehrmacht so hard that they didn't know how to act onto it.
Well, they
because also, for example,
they hard on the Russians and portrayed them in propaganda.
Stupid subhuman Slavs. They can't do anything against. Oh fuck.
Let's be serious. The Soviets were devastating in warfare. They didn't know how to use them properly. But the tank itself, it was like, what the fuck are we fighting against?
Yeah. Oh man,
it was
dude,
devastating
like, the Soviets made some stupid decisions too about that. You know about the tank dogs that they had?
Yeah,
that was funny.
Yeah.
that was funny because, like, wasn't it like most German tanks had kerosene engines, and all of the Russian tanks had diesel engines, so they had the anti-tank dogs. They're like, we'll put anti-tank mines on these dogs and train them to run underneath tanks, except they trained them on diesel fumes. So they would, like, the first time they released them, they blew up their own tanks.
Yeah, I know. Well, the idea in itself is clever, but the execution was bad. Let's be serious.
Yeah. Well, and also, there's probably like millions of people that were like, "Why you got to do this to the dogs, man?"
No. In Russia, it's more like it's a fucking dog. I don't care. We have enough of them.
Yeah, after Stalingrad, they kind of stopped caring because of the whole, gangs of cannibals.
Yeah. But Stalingrad, that was disgusting, but also genius how the Russians beat them in the end. They starved them to death. Awesome. Who cares? It's war.
Yeah. Well, we went way off topic, Garom.
Yeah, we were talking about the American army, and then
about the situation that'll never happen, where Modern Warfare 3 happens. Russia somehow has the power to invade all of Europe at once.
No. Russia will never do that shit. Russia,
yeah, I know.
If you look...
We got on the topic of of it being a hypothetical for some fucking reason, and then it turned into let's talk about World War II tanks because Zoom is angry about the Sherman being shit on.
Well, let's be serious. Have you ever looked into the inner politics and the domestic politics of Russia? Do you know some stories about that shit?
Yeah.
I will tell you one. A friend of mine, he was responsible for the hybrid cars of Daimler Chrysler back in the day. So he basically sold all of the Maybachs or Mercedes AMGs to Russia. And his statement was fascinating when he was telling about that part of his life. There is no difference between the Russian government and the mafia.
Yeah.
Because the more you go away from Moscow, the more the mafia is ruling the country, and the government is okay with that because they know they don't have the capacity to rule over the country. So they basically tolerate that the mafia is keeping those far distant areas in check. And Russia has the interest of spreading out the governmental impact to all areas of Russia. And they will never ever intend to go into Europe. The only thing which Russia is desperately wanting to have from Europe since the 17th century to be respected by Europe, because Europe has always that down look onto Russia, despite the fact that actually Russia, especially they are very very how shall I say it, adaptive to European culture. Russia is always looking into Europe and is looking what are they doing and what is good for us, and they immediately adopt it. For example, their complete education system, I always have to reference it. It's completely German. The Russian education system is a knockoff of the first German education system. Their intellectual approach of everything is completely French. The biggest collection of books from the Renaissance is actually in St. Petersburg, because they like that part so much. For example, of splitting the forces and that shit. And also, for example, their so-called anti-gay law, which they implemented like in 2005 or something like that. It's a one-to-one copy of the British one. There is no difference. They simply translated it into Russian and said that law is awesome. Let's implement it too. That's it. They like Europe, but for some reason Europe always looks down on Russia, because Russia always does it in the way that it fits to Russia. They don't try to adopt completely to Europe, but only take the parts which fits into the Russian society, and that fucking boggles the mind of all Europeans, basically.
That and
the arrogance. Such arrogance.
Yeah, I was about to say. Being an outsider looking in, there's also this quality of Russia as the frontier.
Yeah, that's true too. They don't understand.
What do you mean the frontier?
Well, Russia generally, from like the other Europeans me and Garom probably have both spoken to, it seems to be like this wild and strange place that's not really Europe at all, but like it's also more like Europe than like the Middle East or anything else is. Mm-hmm. So it ends up having the same effect as like how the U.S. looks at Mexico, where like it's like us, it's like our neighboring country, but not at the same time.
Yeah, that is also true, but that is again an issue with Russia, that Russia has an Asian soul and a European soul, and those souls are not separate, but they are mixed. And the proper Europeans, let's call them that way, do not understand that shit. For example, if you look into the geopolitics of Russia, they are completely Asian. They don't have anything to do with European thinking of geopolitics. But if you, for example, know Sun Tzu's Art of War, if you have read it, and then you apply that knowledge to Russian geopolitics, everything what they do makes fucking sense.
Yeah.
It is hilarious. To make it even more clear, the current defense minister and also highest general of the Russian army, he's called Shoigu, and he's a fucking Buddhist. It is crazy, in my opinion. That guy is a Buddhist, but he is also the defense minister of Russia and the highest general in the Russian military.
Yeah.
And their awareness, for example, about religion is fucking amazing. The Russian military, for example, doesn't allow Chechens to enter the Russian army because they're fucking Muslims.
Yeah. I mean, they are a very, very religious country, though.
They are indeed.
Like, Russia's probably like one of the last like very, very white, very, very Christian countries in the world that is like, on like white and Christian on that level.
Yeah, but it's Eastern Orthodoxy, so it's not real Christianity.
Oh, it's not real
Fuck 'em.
Christianity. Somebody get out that flowchart where it was that guy that was being like, therefore, the Russian Federation is actually closer to the true inheritors of Rome than Italy is, or something like that.
Yeah, but don't forget, Russia sees itself as the heritage of the Byzantine Empire. They basically are saying we are the natural successor of the Byzantine Empire. That is how Russia looks actually into itself, how it sees itself.
Yeah.
That is kind of interesting. And on the other side, do you know the plan of the next American century? Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It was a doctrine implemented by Paul Wolfowitz. You can look it up. The plan of the next American century basically proposes that the United States is the successor of the Roman Empire. So there you have basically the mindsets of the think tanks of the two different countries, and then you can imagine why there is a clashing all the time.
Yeah.
God, from the Soviets versus Western capitalism to the Ottomans versus the Roman. God, it's going to be like they should just decide that it's like going to be an Eastern. Actually, that would be funny if they decided, you know what, let's do the Eastern Western Roman Empire thing as civilization collapses around us.
Well, if they're playing the long game in terms of right now, because Russia heavily has to play the long game, like you have stated, right now they have huge economical issues. Do you remember, Garom, where I took out the statistics of the huge impact of the sanctions onto the Russian GDP?
Oh yeah, they got their
basically.
Yeah, they completely got their ass handed to them.
Yeah.
But
now
listen,
the long game.
I don't understand the Europeans' great logic. We'll just eventually, I'm sure sanctions will work, maybe in 100 years, but no, we're talking to Russians here. Like, you think your sanctions are so bad? Have you lived through a fucking Russian winter? Yeah, your sanctions ain't got nothing on that. So it just... The thing with sanctions is there needs to be a viable political alternative to move people towards. I look at Russia and I go, okay, where's that alternative? Where's this brilliant? Like, you basically have to tilt the scale. The sanctions work really well when you're tilting the scale in favor of one particular party. So that's why you can look at North Korea and Iran and get such a different outcome on their the sanctions trying to dissuade those two countries from developing nuclear weapons. And Iran, as much as it's not exactly a free country, it is a democracy, and there are factions. And there definitely is a faction that wants to become more secular and more modern, and a faction which is the religious conservatives. And what happened with the sanctions? All of a sudden, the modernists came out big in the next election. Yeah. There's a viable political alternative to the current status quo, and sanctions were a huge part of that election. The Iranians didn't want to remain under sanction. No, North Korea. There is no political freedom. There are no alternatives. Sanctions are never going to work.
Ever.
Like, it's a game. It's a game the Americans are playing with the fucking Chinese. The North Koreans might as well not even be there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're just playing it at this point to appease the public. Like it's all just it's all just political grand strategy, quote unquote.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm sure it's clear at this point. Even the Chinese have come to realize that the North Korean monarchy.
They've been sick of their shit for like 20 years.
Well, I think they're realizing that the North Korean monarchy is not long for this world.
Yeah,
They're
and
collapsed.
in addition to that, we already covered this last time. China's got a ton of its own problems. As Swaid said, it's or Swaid and I rather, but mostly him, said China's just a giant paper tiger that's now stuck in the rain, stuck in the acid rain that it manufactured. Because the center of that country is just turning into fucking Mad Max. So
the problem of China, they are playing a bet, and right now the bet is not going in their favor in terms of their economical power they have right now. Because if you look, for example, what they have done in terms of building up the infrastructure, they built ghost cities where up to 1 million people could live, but in the end just lived like 50,000. Because planned economy is fine, but people will act out in the way. Nobody wants to live in bumfuck nowhere, except for people like me, for example, who like the quietness or something like that. But those are very few people. Most people want into the city hubs where life is going on, like New York, Los Angeles, or in China it's Hong Kong or Peking. That's where the people want to go.
And don't forget work.
Yes, of course, work. And that is right now not paying off. In addition to that, even if you want to plan your economy, at some point it doesn't make sense to build, for example, creating jobs at some specific places because the infrastructure of the geography isn't beneficial. Russia had also learned to learn that lesson during communism, basically, and it didn't pay off. Who, for example, they complete apart from their from the tank manufacturing, every sort of military equipment is built in Siberia because you cannot capture Siberia, so they have always that advantage of they can build their shit without being interfered.
You cannot capture Siberia.
No, it's impossible. How you want to do it?
You cannot capture Siberia.
How you want to do it?
I don't need to capture.
I mean, if I had
those damn factories,
if I was in charge of anything that had the power, what I would probably do is what the Russians did, or what actually happened, what the Russians did after they stopped being the Soviet Russians, which was, let the fucking Vori take over, i.e. You open up all the gulags in Siberia and then tell them where the nearest village is. and you're like, look, rape and pillage all you want, work in this factory for me later.
That is utterly impossible, and that is right now what is the issue with China. They have invested so much money into projects which are basically just hot air, that they cannot pay the bills, or they're at the brink of not paying them. On the other side, which kind of surprised me when I read an article about that, 100% of all electronics used in American weapons right now are built in China. So you are not going to attack fucking China.
Yeah.
You will not do it because China is going to say,
totally
well,
built
no electronics for you.
into all of it.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, I don't think that they're like it's that's something that's going to happen because like we're suddenly going to run out or anything like that. But it's just
almost like the Chinese attitude was, we're just going to outlast the Americans. We're going to steal all of their manufacturing, and they're just going to slowly somehow grind down as we just sort of
I think that's overestimating. I don't think they forethought that enough, because generally speaking, it's like, yeah, China is a communist country that has like this quasi planned economy, but at the same time, it's like it's the same problem as it's the I wish I knew enough philosophy that or at least political philosophy that there was like a term for this, but that I could call to mind. But it's the same principle as slavery. And in like the problem it poses to society as a whole. It's not just the degradation of human life into an an active conscious object rather than the subconscious one that people treat each other like sometimes. It's the biggest problem with slavery as far as like an economy goes, from the perspective of like, some heartless, soulless, like, bureaucrat that runs the system. It's like if they had the two brain cells to rub together to figure out that there's a problem, is that when you have a slavery system, or a system that relies on near slavery manpower, wage slavery, whatever have you, that cheap manufacturing cheap goods at cheap costs using like near infinite manpower that you think you don't have to worry about, you end up stymieing your own creativity and technological expansion to the point,
yes.
and you're eventually going to have a revolt, and everything's eventually going to collapse, and it's going to be spectacularly awful, that to a point where it doesn't justify the initial like buy-in ever.
Zoom, I have to jump in on that point. Not only that, China has actually right now the issue of rising wages, but also China didn't count in competition.
Yeah. This is why they fucking hate Taiwan so much.
Not Taiwan. Don't count so much on the semiconductor companies. They are not making that much money as you might think. It's the sheer volume they have, but the actual margin of the products is quite low. But to your point of destroying your capable of innovating, that is actually what happened with China with the car manufacturing sector. Germany, for example, was fucking scared as shit. Seriously, like for when did Volkswagen enter the Chinese market? I think in the 80s, till the mid 2000s, the German car industry was fucking scared as shit that the Chinese are going to rip off their technology, and they always introduced a car generation behind the cars you can buy in Europe, because of the fear that the Chinese are going to steal the technology. The Germans got rid of that fear because they realized, yes, the Chinese are fucking awesome in coping, but they are not good at coming up with new ideas. Germany did adopt to that mindset. In addition to that, Germany wants to protect its manufacturing sector. We still have like 20% of our GDP is still manufacturing, which is in industrial terms still the highest percentage of manufacturing sector in all industrial countries. And what is Germany doing right now? They introduced an initiative which we call Industry 4.0. It was introduced in the year 2012. The Americans also have something similar, which they call it smart manufacturing, but it's basically the same. What that means is basically to automate everything in manufacturing. So when you have, for example, like a production plant with 1,000 employees, the goal is through automation just to employ like 100 people at the same place. And actually Germany is looking into to achieve that point, because once again we have so high wages, that's the only way we can go. And like a month ago I read an article, it was an opinion piece in one of Germany's biggest daily newspapers. It's called Die Welt, or The World, where they're proposing a demand of changing the way of thinking of unemployment, that in the future unemployment is going to be a measure of wealth instead of a measure of a country being poor, because the advantages in terms of optimizing right now the manufacturing sector to such a ridiculous degree will basically make a lot of people in Germany unemployed. And that is something China cannot afford, because they have 1.5 billion people. It will break the fucking back of the country.
Well, they're already having issues with rising wages.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Once you start including even more automation, Yeah, they'd be fucked in the ass.
In the ass.
Okay, they'd be fucked in
Deep
the ass, and you'd also now be having, with the one-child policy, smallest amount of population in their workforce. Their society is going to go through just. If you think what the West is going through right now in terms of just convulsions as the world changes around us, China is going to be going through something very similar. They're just a couple decades behind us, but we in the West might actually be in a good position to get power over China, because if we manage to somehow survive what's coming, which is going to be not good, plummeting birth rates, skyrocketing debt, a whole bunch of social issues are just bubbling up philosophically, socially. If we somehow manage to solve the birth rate and financial problem, it'll be interesting to see how much we can sell to China as an idea.
Oh, we will sell a shit ton. For example, a fucking awesome example of how you can to which ridiculous degrees you can automate production is the Valve Steam controller, and that thing is completely built in the US, completely automized. There are like 5 people on the shop floor, and they can produce it on a decent competitive price. That speaks volumes how good you can automate the shit out of a production system. That you can even produce things like a fucking controller on a competitive price level, like in a high-wage country like the United States. So China didn't get the memo that automation is. Yes, they did get the memo. They bought right now the company KUKA, which is one of the leading automation companies worldwide. It's a German company. They're building industrial robots, but because China.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, but because China bought that company, and they were a crucial part of that initiative, Industry 4.0. Germany is thinking about implementing laws to protect their intellectual property on a country scale, because they were so crucial to that initiative, and they didn't just want to give it off to China. And back in days, till this point, Germany said, well, that's the free market. If a bigger company is, or a more successful company or investment company is buying knowledge out of Germany, let it happen. But that was so crucial that Germany is now starting to protect that knowledge. And like I said, the Americans also have that knowledge. The Steam controller is the best example, in my opinion. And that is, for the economy of Germany, the buyout of KUKA was basically a declaration of war. So they made the wrong decision, at least in the terms of Germany, I would say. And they will have the issues we have right now, because even when the people are starting to try to implement the idea that unemployment is going to be a measurement of wealth instead of being poor, something is going on. And they cannot win because they don't have the knowledge or the proper mindset of it.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is that, like, I'm not even so sure that automation, I know it's inevitable, but it's also kind of a shortcut, to be honest with you, as far as costs go. Because, and I'm only saying this because, like, Swain and I have looked so deeply into, like, corporate welfare and how, like, the just corporate bureaucracies work on an economic level. And it's like, you could manufacture stuff at a reasonable price point in a high wage country like Germany or the US with just even the modern methods without automation, or doing something that, like, corporatists think is preposterous, like, not paying their executives such obscene wages. But it would require you to fucking have but very, very good oversight to prevent corruption and red tape in the bureaucracy that is between the people that run the company and the people that actually do all the work in it.
Well, this is something I think a lot of companies, I've worked now at 3 in manufacturing, and two of them couldn't get their head around this concept. Was their attitude is that automation is a technical thing, and I go, no. Automation is a radical ideological change in how you produce a product. You have to change your entire structure, and they don't get it. They don't understand that. No, that means not only your ERP, your enterprise resource planning setup has to be overhauled.
Yeah, and I mean,
your software, how you lay out your entire server system has to be overhauled. Everything has to be overhauled.
Not just that. There's the two things that like the thing about that even ruins just all modern corporatism, that like they don't understand that they're kind of like shooting themselves in the foot on that one. As far as like their own personal gain goes, even if the economy might improve, is that the real heart of darkness in most corporate bureaucracies that we see in like the corporate business models these days, the real heart of darkness to it is human resources departments and marketing departments and how they collude together with management. And suddenly, if you start automation, suddenly human resources are completely obsolete. You do not need an entire human resources department to manage like the 5 guys you have in R&D and the maintenance staff of what was once like, you know, a company with thousands of employees. They're suddenly useless, and they're already like parasites to begin with, and how most of them operate. So you do that, like that's not just a radical ideological change of just that company. Once automation hits full stride with companies on like the macro scale, as like in a societal level, that's going to be like kicking over a rock and seeing all the bugs underneath. And just, you know, they're going to get stomped. And then marketing departments are either going to get more out of control because of the propagandization effect, or they're going to get slashed to shit, and we're just going to see the same thing happen again. We're going to see this, like, you know, false bottoming out of the economy as far as the middle class goes, because suddenly you have all of these management and executive positions of just, you know, from cubicle farms that are no longer required. They're no longer required, so all of these people leave, and then everyone in the nation's going to go, the middle class is dying. And they're going to try and like fucking do an economic recovery for them, the people that were useless and retarded and ruining everything before anyway, instead of all of the factory workers under them that are actually getting the shaft.
Well, the middle class doesn't seem to understand that the world's changing around them, and we've had now a full generation that's their fucking life has been inside a cubicle farm, and that is the perception of producing value. Is sitting at a fucking computer screen all day long and typing in bullshit into a computer. Those days are gone. If you think you're going to be sitting at a computer all day long in an air-conditioned office building, you're insane. And we're going to start seeing cities start in the United States under the current Democrat system just starting to collapse because they've put all their fucking eggs in one basket. The current corporatist model is going to continue.
Yeah, and they don't understand.
It's going to collapse.
And it's going to collapse. And it goes hand in hand with how they've fucking, you know, they've corporatized academia and turned, you know, all the colleges into basically, you know, more corporations that don't actually, more corporations that don't sell you a good product, take all of your money, and then try to shaft you with legal restrictions.
And this is something they're going to also have to get used to is engineers who the attitude used to be, even in the companies that were good, the concept of an engineer living on the factory floor was fucking alien to them. The number of engineers I've met that do not spend a lot of time on the manufacturing floor is going to end. It has to end.
Yeah.
Your engineering is
we need to put
going
more
to become
people
increasingly integrated with living on the floor. And I couldn't believe it at some of the companies I've worked at. Just the concept of engineers being on the floor. They're just like, well, yeah, of course. And I'm like, then why does nobody fucking do it in this company?
And it's just the way everything's going. What's gonna really suck.
I have to put a statement into it. I have to giggle right now when you're stating that statement. Engineers have to live on the shop floor because that's what we do in Germany. So I have to giggle right
Yes.
now. Sorry.
Well, like
I
Germany-
feel kind of proud right now.
It makes
Germany's
perfect-
corporate structure isn't as garbage.
Yeah, what I'm seeing in North America is a fundamental lack of. They just don't. Management fucking doesn't get it, and they need to start getting their head in line. But the companies I've been at, they're either so out of the three, only one of them had their head in the game, but that was.
Oh God! Now, all right. So
Can I
Tyler
tell
is
you
sitting
one
on Garom's
anecdote?
lap, and now Swaid is sitting on my lap. And
Hey.
once again, we have to
Hello.
complain. Why is there no like 4-seater couches in all of Sarajevo?
So if I may just finish my one of the one company that I was working for on contract, I wish I could have stayed, but I did my job, and I was no longer needed. They actually had their head. Funny, it's the company that I'm only. It's a contract or a job that they actually had their head in line. The first one was just ruled by a oligarchical corporate structure that eventually collapsed under its own weight of bad decisions.
Don't they
And
always?
where I am now, the problem is chaos. They can't get their act together. They've got a lot of personnel problems. We're having trouble finding workers. The position I'm in, unfortunately, the line was they go through a person working in my position once every, on average, I kid you not, it's about a year and a half. People just put their hands up and they walk away in sheer frustration. I see why. It's a complete mess because they don't have the back end organization. For instance, let's say well, here's a good example. So I'm designing a jig for manufacturing. It's a fixture. You put your part that you go into fabricate. It's sort of half manufactured into the part into your fixture. You clamp it all up, and then you put the fixture is in a machine, and it completes the machining processes. Pretty standard manufacturing stuff. I've had two problems with this. One is this fixture has to bolt into a pre-existing mounting. There was no standardized documentation of that pre-existing mounting anywhere in the system that I could find. I had to go down a fucking rabbit's hole to find that documentation. This apparently critical piece of equipment, and nobody knew the exact dimensions I needed to put all the mounting hardware at. Nobody knew. It wasn't written down. It wasn't easy to find. Critical equipment, no fucking instructions. Also for it, so I was in our controlled documentation system. There were models for the product, and it said I was looking at the drawing for the product, looking at the model in the system. They both had the same revision number. So according to engineering standards, they should be geometrically identical parts. Apparently they weren't. You see, the customer had sent us the wrong models. Despite having the right revision number, they were geometrically not the same. So not only is our system wrong, their system was wrong too. So with this, I'm from a German perspective. What's happening where I live is just I'm beating my head against the wall, just going, don't these people get this? That you have a system where nothing is documented, and apparently this is endemic everywhere you go right now. Nothing's fully documented. No one's bothered to write stuff down because we have ADD when it comes to manufacturing in North America. No one finishes a project and they move on to the next one. They don't finish that one and they move on to the next one. This entire company, you look around and everything is half finished because they just can't finish anything. It's amazing. nothing ever gets fucking done because there's always a new priority because fucking marketing or management gets it through their head that it's like they see the new shiny and they just go towards it before finishing off what they were working on. And I'm sure from a German perspective, they're like, you're probably thinking no, because the Germans are like uber methodical when it comes to this stuff. We're just like flailing around trying to find the next big thing because that's how we think in North America. We're always looking for the next big thing. We have no patience. This is our culture. But when it comes to automation, well, that might be the thing that
Garom, let him say something. Oh, God.
Automation is the next big thing. Automation also requires a hell of a lot of patience.
Garom, rule of thumb in Germany, 80% of a project is documentation in Germany.
Yes, people don't understand why I'm constantly clacking, into the keyboard and doing drawings and everything. I document fucking everything.
Garom, look, the obvious solution is to take advantage of your socialist state, go back to college just specifically to learn German, and then just get Tyler to find you an apartment somewhere in like Munich. Go become a real engineer, Garom. Don't let your dreams be memes.
I will tell you a story about my internship. I made a test of using polarization to detect surface deterrence. So basically using bright light and having protective glasses which are polarized, so you could detect if the surface is properly machined or not. It was a test of like 1 day, so to get all the things, and it took me like 3 months for the documentation, and it was a 40-site report. That was what the company was demanding from me as an intern, and I said, yeah, 2 days, and now make your fucking observations, write everything down up to the room temperature, and even to that degree that I had to measure, for example, the how it's called, the moisture level of the air, because it could happen that for example the water in the air could affect, for example, the way how the results were given at the end.
Tyler,
and at some point I need to retest that shit.
Tyler,
yeah,
all my projects don't have a budget. I had to tell my supervisor what the budget was.
I mean, that sounds pretty good.
There's no timeline.
Unlimited funding.
Yeah, that sounds
there's
pretty
no
great
timeline.
to me.
There's no metrics for success. There's no scope and scale.
Well, hey, hold on here. Here's the problem.
I just get told, just make
this is really good.
Here's the problem.
I should become an engineer.
Yeah, no, Swaid, you're a scientist. They're engineers. They need to know these things. You sit there going, unlimited money and time. Oh my God, I'm gonna cure cancer.
I don't think you understand. I'm losing my goddamn mind because I have no idea what the objective is. I'm just in a
So you guys want me to build a car or what? Just do engineering things, I guess, dude. Here's a paycheck. Like, what the fuck? What company do you work for? InGen?
I have no idea whether I'm the greatest engineer they've ever hired or am going to get fired ASAP. I have no idea.
I would like to
believe there's no standards.
I would like to believe neither. I'd like to believe that you're in a movie corporation where they just You're working for like the engineering equivalent of Umbrella Corp or something. Like they're trying to build golems out of scrap metal, and they're just hoping you'll figure it out somehow.
It is a reality show from MTV. You know?
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Undercut. We went to Canada and decided to make an entire shell corporation to troll this one engineer. He's the only one qualified to do his job. Funnily enough, the entire show actually is an accurate simulacrum of what it's like to work here.
It's like a real-life Truman Show, and I'm in it.
Garom is the one straight man.
No.
I wanted to give you an anecdote to engineers on the shop floor. A friend of mine is working at a company who is developing right now a part for the next upcoming Porsche. I cannot tell you any more about it because it's confidential. And the project manager of Porsche went into that company to go through the product they were designing. They had a checklist which was like 50 pages thick, and the checklist was kind of interesting sorted. How he told me. First of all, he went to the management, went through the checklist. Then he went into the logistical groups. Are they even capable of producing that part in the amount portion needed to be? And the next thing that what he has done, he went onto the shop floor to the people who were in the prototyping phase, and he talked with every single one of them. I have to say, my cousin works at Audi, and they have a similar thing, but they went with that obsession into detail. I've never heard of it. But
I mean, it's Audi. It's Audi, dude. Come on.
No, like if you want to, this is a great example of how to think about automation, because it's a lot like robotics. You've got a robotic arm. Now it's going to pick up this product that's sitting on a table right in front of you. It's going to pick it up and it's going to move it over to the other end of the table. This is a pretty common application for a lot of robotics. Essentially, that's all they do. They pick something up, they move it through a pre-programmed path, and then they put it down. Here's the thing about robots. They're fucking retards.
Yes.
Let's say you moved the part over by a centimeter. So it picked up the part, it put it down. It goes to grab the next part, and you put the next part down just a centimeter off.
I think you offended Sherman.
Or to Americans about half an inch, let's say. It's a half an inch to the right. The robot's going to go down, try and pick it up, not going to pick it up. Now, it's too stupid to recognize that it hasn't picked it up. So it's going to go through its predefined arc and plop the piece down. And then it's going to go up to pick up the next one. And, of course, it's still a half inch off, so it doesn't pick it up.
That seems like a programming issue.
Well, it's not just that. It's because
the robot doesn't have any concept.
I think I know exactly where this is going. I know exactly where this is going, Garom. This is back to what you were saying about, visual recognition systems and robotics and how like they're giant fucking pain in the ass right now.
So yeah, right now we aren't at the robotics technical sophistication level to accommodate for this, but this is sort of the metaphor I use for automation. The thing with robotics is you have to control the environment perfectly in order for that robot to work. Automation is the same thing. Automation is the process of controlling the environment. And just to wrap up my entire concept of why we fucking don't understand automation in North America very well is we, in our current corporate structures, do not understand how to organize our environment particularly well. Even when we do try and organize our environment, we don't do it in a very economic way. So we get stuck between a rock and a hard place. We either have a environment that is too chaotic to automate, and thus we're constantly doing all this redundant and repetitive work that doesn't need to be done, or worse yet, you're getting a duplication of work. Or we've created a bureaucracy to organize everything that's so fucking expensive that it completely offsets the savings of the automated process. We ideologically in North America don't seem to know how, broadly speaking, to find that happy middle road between those two extremes.
Interesting. Tesla, and Tesla bought the company which designs the production lines of BMW, Volkswagen, the Volkswagen Group, and Mercedes. They actually bought the company. It was a German one. And do you know what the CEO of that company has done after 1 month dealing with Elon Musk? Because he couldn't understand what automation is, he fucking left the company.
Elon Musk couldn't understand
that's great.
automation. Great.
Dude, Sherman, weren't you telling me about a conversation you had with the guys in my brother's hate group about that shit? My brother's dumb hate group full of people that were like, but Elon Musk is saving the world.
No. He's getting lots and lots of government money to basically
pollution.
Yeah. Tesla isn't profitable in the sense of we make a thing and we sell it and we make money. It's profitable in the sense of us making and selling this thing is 100% subsidized. So any amount of things that we sell of this makes us a profit, regardless of how many we make.
Well, let's say it that way. Tesla is going to be crushed anyways because they have the model they are known for is the I think it's the Model S, that sedan they have. And
Tyler,
right now Porsche is
getting some background.
I'm sorry. Right now Porsche is developing a competitor to the Model S, and the development demands is it has to be better at everything. It has to be lighter. It has to have more, for a better traveling distance in terms of it. I cannot say how much. I know that number, but otherwise I would be in deep trouble. And it has to be it has to accelerate better. What I can tell you, for example, the Model S right now, you can buy it with 2 electrical motors. Porsche right now is thinking, do we put in 2 or do we put in 4 electrical motors? Because they're thinking of developing a system which is capable of torque vectoring. So that means every fucking wheel gets its own electrical motor, and that car could, in theory, it could turn like a tank. Simply to show who's the boss in the ring of automotive industry. And Porsche is part of the Volkswagen group. So when Porsche has the technology, right now the biggest car industry company in the world would have the technology on a complete scale. They could implement the technology basically not just in the Porsche, but also in the fucking Volkswagen Golf. They cannot compete with that. It is a nice approach of doing it, but if you piss off the boss in the ring, he's pissed enough, he's going to punch you into oblivion. That is the same what, for example, Intel made with AMD. When AMD introduced in the year 2000 or 2001 the Athlon 64, which was a fucking good processor, Intel was devastated. What they have done, they introduced the fucking Intel Core 2 Duo, and it fucking wiped the floor.
I mean, people tend to forget that Intel also has all the government money from all of their, DoD stuff, and AMD does not. But more than that, AMD is the one that invented the 86 architecture. Intel didn't 86... come up with that. AMD did.
Yes, but you have to be careful if you try to piss off the biggest fish in the pond, because it can be dangerous, and that is what is Elon Musk is doing right now. First and for all, he's trying to piss off Porsche, and Porsche is a very proud company in itself. They want to be the best, and they think of being entitled to be the best, not in just terms to put out stuff. When they produce a car or introduce a new car, it has to be the best in their opinion, and otherwise. They bought off the company which is providing the complete car industry in Germany with the automation knowledge. It was basically a huge fuck you to Germany, and trust me, they don't take it nicely that they have done that shit. They are not pleased.
Yeah, I mean, there is, of course, all the theories that that's why he does it to begin with, is he's intentionally pissing people off. So you're like, wait a minute, fuck this guy, we're going to go do what he does, but better. The thing is, even if that's the case, and honestly, I'd say it probably is, actually, he's still an asshole, because he's still doing this with, taxpayer money. He's not doing it out of pocket. He's basically spending, government subsidies to go around developing some, shitty, half-functional prototypes that just give everyone else in the industry a kick in the pants, and then they go and actually make their own and spend a bunch of their own money. But he's getting all the credit for doing this, and then later on when everyone else makes their own thing, and there was oh, Elon Musk is so great, he got everyone interested in electric cars or rocketry or whatever the fuck. But he didn't spend any of his own money doing this. Most of the time, it wasn't even technology that he had any part in. All he did was buy a company and then get the government to give that company a bunch of fucking money.
In specific terms to Tesla, don't forget about the Japanese. They're basically the jack in the box. You never know what they're coming up with. Sometimes it's fucking genius what they do. Sometimes it's other shit. But Toyota is pissed as hell
This
as
robot will feed you tomatoes
like
while you
say.
run.
Yeah, but I mean,
Just like the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation.
Mechanical engineering and like just like I don't know, like robotics in general isn't exactly like my wheelhouse. Though I know enough to get by. I was just more speaking about I was just more speaking about like just like Elon Musk in general is just gets way too much credit for getting government money to be a dick to people. And they're like, oh, he's so great. He was such an asshole that everyone else decided to just collectively pool their money and use it to make him shut the fuck up. What a great dude, that Elon Musk.
So basically, he's a mercenary for the government to spur economic innovation.
No. The government thinks he's going to deliver the product. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll make electric cars and rockets and whatever. And I was like, great, we'll give you all this money to do that. And then he doesn't do it because he just wanted to get other people to do it. And then he gets all the credit for making it happen, even though he never delivered anything past a working, like a barely functional prototype. But everyone gives him all the credit.
He is a leftist version of the memes that they've made about Trump. Like he's basically like he's basically, you know, leftist Trump. If like all the shit that the media says
I'm not sure I would say that. He's a pretty like politically I'm not really sure where he is at all.
No, I'm not talking about politically. I mean like in the sense of his personality traits. Like They keep trying to say Trump is one specific person when, like, if you see how he acts versus what he actually does, he's obviously, you know, playing up a character and fucking with people.
Yeah.
Whereas,
That's kind of what Elon Musk is doing, where Elon Musk would be like, yeah, I'm such a nice, like, awesome, visionary, brilliant industry leader.
Yeah, he also operates on a business level very similar to the way Trump does, in the sense that he brands all of his shit, and he claims credit for stuff that he's actually just putting his name on.
Yeah. And like, whereas Trump is like, I'm going to be a dick to you, Elon Musk is like, look how inspiring and great I am, even though I never accomplished anything myself.
That's why every time I do a photo shoot, I make myself look as messianic as possible.
Yep.
What a cock.
Whatever.
Maybe he's just a fucking attention whore.
I mean, no, he's absolutely an attention whore. And then his stupid fucking brain thing that he's doing now, Neuralink. It's so stupid. Like this is like coming from someone like this. That's in my actual area of expertise, and this is like fuck off, Musk. You know, or at least you should be paying people who know. That's not gonna fucking do anything. Like you're just gonna waste a bunch more money on nothing.
A bunch more of other people's money.
Yeah, but you're just gonna waste a bunch more of other people's money making like some shitty like 1,000 electrode like prototype like chip or whatever. And we can interface with like 1,000 neurons now. It's not like we wouldn't have had that already by like, you know, in the next like 2-3 years. All you're doing is just taking credit for things that are already happening by making a big deal of something that was already going on, but no one really knew about, and branding it the whole time with like your name. It's like people weren't paying attention to neuroelectronics, but they were still happening. And now it's going to be like he's going to get all the credit for it. It's stupid.
The guy's as much of an attention whore as you're making him out to be. How he doesn't have a freaking cologne line is absolutely beyond me.
No, that's not visionary.
It's too obvious for him.
It's not visionary and like technocratic and like, oh, future, I love science bullshit. No.
No. What he'll do?
Science cologne.
What he'll do is once Tesla fails, or inevitably quasi fails, and then the neuroelectronics starts to go to shit, he will create a cologne line of Elon's Musk, but it's going to be after he like convinces people that there's tailored pheromones in it. When it's like, you know, he's just paying other biochemists to develop him bullshit that he doesn't actually know how it works either.
Yeah, they're gonna determine what smell he has that gives him the ability to bullshit people so well, and then put it in a cologne.
Yeah. Smells like $40,000 ground up and sprayed all over somebody.
No, that would probably be actually more effective.
It's the... We need to have the Magic Johnson cologne line come out first.
It smells like AIDS.
It smells like AIDS that was cured by sleeping on this giant pile of money. Anyway. Oh, God. This went way beyond... Way out of control. Way out of control. Alright, so just going back...
into 2 turned into 4. We multiplied.
I know, and now it's just 4 men sitting on a 2-seater couch in the middle of the Temple of Nod, wondering what happened. But I'm pretty sure, like, we started this as a LOVEseat. We're going to end it as a fucking EdgeCast. So, France committed suicide. Trump considers dissolving the Ninth Circuit Court. They're investigating the Saudi Arabia. Comey got fired. Oh yeah, the
Comey got fingered. No,
yeah, the DNC argued in court that they don't owe anyone a fair primary process. They're just a national convention.
Yeah, they are a private organization. People kind of forget that because people are politically illiterate. Yeah, I guess, or
like that,
whatever the term word is.
Like the optics of them openly saying that we don't need to have a.
We could just pick whoever we want. It's not even cheating. It's not. We could just say Hilary wins. She's our candidate, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, let's just skip us going through this entire process of having these delegates vote and all. It's just optics. I mean, don't worry about it.
It's all just bread and circuses.
Oh, man, this would be like still though. Like, doesn't this just feel like just complete shenanigans though? Like. This feels like fucking back during Gamergate when like all the articles came out where there was like all the journalists that were like, well, see, we can't actually be completely objective, so there's no point in trying. When they had like just no defenses left, like this would be like if after they said they were gonna audit the Federal Reserve just goes, we're a privately owned bank, you can't audit us. And then just nothing happened. And everyone's just like... and like suddenly the entire the U.S. is aware on national television. It's like, wait a second.
They're the same people.
Shuts up
it just,
that.
like, not necessarily like in terms of like they're the exact same people, but like in terms of their personality types, all their various mental problems, we'll say, psychiatric or otherwise, they're... to a lesser extent their politics, but just the way in general these kind of people operate is just very similar, you'll find across the board. And so you'll just see stuff like this happen over and over, where they just back down and like scorched earth or whatever, and they just end up at the point where like, well, you can't do anything about it anyways, so shut up, even if you are right.
Well, that's to me when I hear someone say something to that effect, it's like I know I've won because I've backed them into a corner so much that they're like I fucking have no arguments. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, maybe the U.S. government can't audit the Federal Reserve, but the very fact that I pushed you into a corner that far deep into the corner.
I mean, we still can. Their logic as to why we cannot is completely ridiculous. But no, this is just like basically like you were saying, Zoom. It's just like Gamergate, and it's just like the Federal Reserve for a reason, and that is because the kind of people that were involved with that are like are archetypically they are the same.
Yeah. Well, before we move into any drama that we want to cover, if we even want to keep going at this point, I wanted to ask Tyler while he's here. We have the rare opportunity of talking to an authentic European. How do you feel about the French elections, Tyler? Or are Germans not allowed to comment on that either? Because I remember you came in here and listened to us when we were talking about Israel for a while, but you couldn't say anything.
No, we can shit over France. Nobody likes France in Europe. Let's be
German says we can
Everybody
shit
hates
over France.
We beat them in 2. We'll beat them in 2 weeks. Let's be serious. We made them.
Oh,
the
come on.
largest-
Everyone's beat
largest
France in
world.
2 weeks now.
Dude,
No,
in
to
World
be
War
honest,
One, the French army surrendered to a field of saplings and a field of cows, one after the other, before surrendering to the actual German army at one point.
Don't tell that to the Verdun veterans.
I know it must suck to be a decent soldier, and it must suck to be a part of the French Foreign Legion or whoever, their actual decent military units, because they just sit there being wow.
That would suck if you were a veteran from the First World War. I mean, you fought at Verdun, and it was just... people don't understand. Verdun was a goddamn bloodbath. The Germans walked into that battle with one objective, and one objective only, and it was going to be a completely new style of warfare. They embraced the concept that World War I was going to be an attritional war, and their sole objective was to kill as many French as they could. And they failed miserably at it because the casualties were about 1-to-1.
Yep.
World War I was bad, okay? Now now let Tyler talk about France.
Yeah, the Germans just kept on pumping more and more men into the battle, and the French just kept on pumping more and more men into the battle, and it was a fucking meat grinder.
Indeed, I have to say. Anyways, I don't give a shit about the elections, to be honest, because in my opinion, no, seriously, they were fucking rigged. They were so much.
Oh yeah, they were
information
definitely
came out.
rigged.
Did I link
Yeah,
you guys that stupid fucking thing where it was for Macaroni's voters, right?
Yeah.
You're going all down the line. You're getting 30 to macaroni and cheese and penne or whatever. It's you go down the line. You get 30 to 40% of voters in each age category voting for penne, right? So you have roughly 60% to 65% actually going for Macron. I'd probably say 65%, all down the line, in every age category. Then you get to 65 and older. I think it was maybe even 60 and older. 80% voting for macaroni.
I'm sorry.
Out of nowhere, it just jumps up to 80% voting for him.
Well, I didn't
I'm
see
confused.
that, but I did see the.
I'm really confused. Who's Rotini?
The Rotini's
Yeah,
dead.
well, whatever, dude. Anyways, so that is in itself some of the most blatantly obvious, this is rigged.
Well, it wasn't just shit like that.
This is rigged exit polls around, because you don't have, like clockwork, in every age category, 65% of the vote, and then suddenly it shoots up to 80-85% in at the very end of the age category, which happens to be the one which has the most people going senile, not voting for themselves, people voting on their behalf, and so on.
Yeah.
No, you don't have that happen statistically.
I've seen a few videos of people capturing on a cell phone, multiple ballots being passed.
Yep.
Yeah, that was what I was about
Macron.
to say. I've seen
People throwing out ballots for Le Pen, and it's all being captured on video. So, yeah, I'm sort of assuming that the video is authentic. I have no idea how I would verify that this video is in fact being taken from a French election voting place. But
there was one that got famous on the Chans before everyone started finding the rest, where it was a migrant who recorded himself and was bragging about it on LiveLeak. Like, just, he showed up at a polling station in Paris, grabbed all of the ballots that were for Penn, and just left. And he is bragging about it. He had a screen overlay that was, like, talking about, like, who he was and, like, linking to his Instagram and shit.
Yeah, like I said, I simply don't give a shit about the French election.
I said it earlier. It's like government fucking policy in France that anyone like the Front National cannot win, and they will pull off any bullshit, keep them out of office.
Yeah.
The French are they've been cucked for a long time, and it's just looking more and more like France is very institutionalized, and I think. Just the EU is basically the same thing. You've just got this closed. We might as well be calling these guys aristocrats.
Yeah,
in fact,
they are.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, that's probably what we should start calling people like Merkel and Juncker and Macron. Is these are aristocrats? They're not regular people, not you and me. And let's face it, in Europe, the average citizen has no political power anymore.
Yep. You are right, completely onto it.
You've got the media, which is basically the new Vatican. You've got the princes, people like Macron. You've got your queens, people like Le Pen, and your kings like Juncker. And there's this weird aristocratic class that's emerged with the EU. And the EU is basically, I guess you would view it as your major royal families. And the politics...
So, it's what feudalism is the feudal corporatist system, like original corporatism has returned to Europe, except this time it's completely retarded because it doesn't have the one element that actually made it legitimate.
Divine right?
No, the military.
Oh, right. They still have
the original corporatism referred to the core, as in the elite of feudal society, which was it was the church, the royalty, the nobility, and the military. And the military was the only element of those four that had actual, self-legitimizing power.
That is like the fucking purpose of feudalism. Everyone other than like military leaders in a feudal society is just a hanger-on to those military leaders that keeps their power only by politicking with each other to get the attention of those military leaders and their approval.
And then make the appearance that they have legitimate authority as well.
Yeah.
When what's going on...
all they're doing is trying to either trick the military into believing that they have some kind of power, or they're trying to get in the good graces of the military, so they will loan them some of their power.
And
every other there's no other way to actually have like lasting power in a feudal society.
And what's scaring the shit out of them currently is that because of how just everything is since the Cold War, through NATO, the U.S. is like the real military power of Europe in their society.
It is.
So now that we have Trump in charge, who is totally him and the people who support him that are basically totally uninterested in being the military stooges for, this set of corporate echelons of authority and society that have nothing to do with their own culture. They're basically kind of shitting their pants going, oh fuck, we better lock ranks and keep trying to meme to people that we're in charge.
Yeah, but I was kind of sad that Le Pen didn't win, but I didn't expect her to win because I knew the election were rigged. It was so obvious in terms of how much information came out of Macron, which made him basically unelectable, and he still got elected.
There were leaked emails showing that.
Well, a lot of that was because they have the media lockdown legally, where for like 3 or maybe 2 days before the French election, you were legally prohibited from talking about the election. And this is, of course, in order to prevent quote-unquote rumor mongering from biasing the results of the election. But really, it's just so, like, you can't have, like, last-minute leaks or whatever, that they don't have time to come up with a convenient narrative to that makes it so that people will be like, hey, that's not as bullshit as it actually is.
Yeah.
Or, well, actually, I kind of agree with the. I get where they're getting at with that one because
I get where they're going with it also, but their logic does not hold up under scrutiny whatsoever, and it is in fact the very opposite of what they claim it to be.
Yeah, and I mean,
if you do like some very like cursory like analysis of it, it's like, no, this doesn't actually make sense.
And they ended up blacking out some stuff that was like really fucking spooky in that time period too. I mean, the Macron leaks that showed up when we got all the information about the CIA was one thing, and then him being a shady character when they're literally calling him some outsider maverick when it's like the dude was a banker raised by bankers, a part of the banking, literally part of the Rothschilds. Like this is not a fucking drill. But like then
hired right out of university into the Rothschilds bank in a senior position. Or something or other, I forget the exact description, getting a huge six-figure salary. Yeah. Straight out of university, getting a huge six-figure... This guy's on the outside.
That stuff is like, people are nerd to it. That's bog standard bullshit corruption 101 at this point. Like, as fucked up as that is, that's still like, bog standard now. What was really spooky was when fucking people on polls started turning up his address book and found he had like North Korean connections for some fucking reason. That was just weird.
Yep. And that is the reason why I say I cannot give a shit about the elections. They were rigged. What shall I say? Democracy doesn't work anymore, at least in Europe. The only positive thing about is Macron won, more power to Germany. That's it. But I don't know
Germany
if
continues
it's
its unrivaled dominance of Western Europe.
Yep, but I cannot say if it's a good thing or a bad thing if Germany has so much power right now in the European Union.
Oh.
I can't say it.
I mean, if Apollo were here, he would argue the hell out of that point, but Apollo's fucking died in a French terror attack or something, I guess. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he went back to Poland and went full Polak on us, where he just does not give a shit anymore. Like...
He's just been in just like a vodka-induced stupor since he got back.
You know what's sad? He's the only Pole I know that wasn't like a rampant alcoholic.
That's because he wasn't living in Poland.
Yeah, he was living in France. He was like drinking orange juice all the time. I was like,
yeah,
what
he's
the
drinking
fuck
like
is wrong
orange
with
juice
you?
and wine. You can't get drunk on that.
He wasn't even drinking wine. It was just orange juice.
Yeah.
Just orange juice.
He wants to go back to Poland and get his vodka.
Yeah.
So he did.
There was one time he was talking about drinking, and he because of the language barrier, he misspelled rum and coke, and it came out as rum and cock.
I mean, he is in France.
Apollo, if you ever hear one of these, we will never forgive you for abandoning us. Tyler and Garom totally agree with me, right, guys?
I have no idea who this person is.
He's the guy you replaced.
Yeah, that dude. I still have no idea who this person is.
Because you haven't even watched the first 2 episodes of the EdgeCast.
I haven't watched any of the episodes of the EdgeCast.
Oh yeah, I forgot. You hate the shit.
Probably for the best.
Why would I watch something that I was already in? I had this conversation with you people before.
Well, you weren't in the first 2 episodes. Or the first 3. Tyler was number 3.
Well, whatever. Still, like, why would I want to listen to myself talk about something I've already talked about the exact way I've talked about it with people who I've already heard everything they already said?
Because you want to learn your mistakes.
YouTube shackles.
Yeah, that too, obviously.
I'm gonna give myself ad revenue. That's a good idea.
You just make 1 million sock puppet accounts and just keep refreshing the video every day until it gets views. Then we get like $5. Puppet accounts.
How much does that give you these days? $5-10?
Garbage. Everything's demonetized still, I'm pretty sure. Like, everything is now Patreon.
What I was listening to, it was China Uncensored. They were talking about their ad revenue used to be, I think it was just shy of like $2 per 1,000 views or some surprisingly large number. It was $2 per like X number of views, and it went down to 14 cents.
Man, yeah, China Uncensored, it makes me sad because like I don't even agree with that that dude's personal politics, but he's like he's like one of the few people on YouTube that's like legitimately a decent journalist when it like doing classical journalism.
Oh yeah, and it's so tough to get any honest information on China.
Yeah.
Their
like-
freaking propaganda machine is huge. Nobody in the mainstream news. There's they've pointed out before, this is well known, there's only 6 companies in the United States that control the media. And they all want in on China.
They have Chinese shareholders.
Yeah, and they have Chinese shareholders. They want in on China. They have Chinese shareholders. They don't want to fuck with China. They don't want to fuck with the CCP. So they're not going to report disfavorably of the Chinese government, even when they do god-awful things like harvest human organs from freaking political prisoners.
Yeah, there were political prisoners for practicing a form of meditation that was illegal.
Yes,
because
and they executed these people and took their organs out for commercial transplants.
Yeah, dude, that was what we were saying last episode. I'm like, I am so ready for like the Chinese to try and escape through the Himalayan mountains when like their like China itself finally fully collapses, because
two or three
the Tibetans will not forgive them.
2 or 3 listeners, I want to emphasize this. China is killing political prisoners and harvesting their organs for profit. It is metaphorically speaking, it's not all that different than, say, Soylent Green.
No, it's much different from Soylent Green in that it is actually a real thing. Firstly,
and secondly, in the case of Soylent Green, the government was retarded, but the government was retarded in facing a food shortage.
Yes.
Like
whereas with China,
that was not deliberate evil.
These people.
That was not a deliberate evil. That
those
was an
people
evil
were
that came
already
about
dead.
that evil was one that came about as a result of
They weren't killing them on purpose to make food. Those people were dying naturally and then turned into food.
Yeah.
So China is somehow managed to be even more evil.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't even really evil at all. It was just kind of gross.
Welcome to fucking science fiction. Or, like, not even science fiction. Welcome to speculative fiction. It's just shit that hasn't happened yet. And reality is very, very often much stranger than fiction.
In my opinion, we should give that knowledge or that information to some left-leaning blogs or something like that, and look what they're doing with it.
They're not going to do anything.
They're turning they've turned a complete blind eye to the Soviet Union. They've turned a complete blind eye to Maoist China. They've turned a complete blind eye to Cuba, Venezuela. What makes you think they're going to give a shit about this? They're just going to say it's not real communism. As if that's like some kind of an actual fucking argument.
It's not just
I'm pretty sure the Chinese Communist Party would love to differ with your opinion. I'm sure the Cuban Communist Party and the far left-wing communist militias in Venezuela would love to disagree with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying in spirit, Tyler, but come on.
Yeah, but I know it will not happen because communism is the new black. So therefore, we have to agree that everything what some slightly communist countries are doing, it has to be cool, unless it's Russia.
Unless it's Russia, even though Russia is like not communist at all. Russia is a fucking mafia-run oligopoly. Like,
but back in the days, the bad commies.
Yeah,
it seems weird that the leftist narrative that they love all things communist, but
what scares me
those
about
those darn Russians. I mean, the Russian under the bed scandal right now is just fucking hilarious.
Well,
I thought you loved the communists.
No, the thing that scares the shit out of me. Well, they've already redefined them as not true commies. Like it's just like feminism. It's just. Oh, we found this abusive woman that chopped off like her son's balls over nothing. She's not a real feminist.
Oh, well, speaking of that, there was something I posted. It was the woman who's now, she's an SJW, and she wrote an article about how the concept of transgenderism can also be applied to transracialism, and then got in trouble with all the BLM, and she's being hounded by the
Yeah,
BLM
yeah. She was like, I identify as black.
Yeah, Rachel
And then-
Dolezal.
Yeah.
Rachel Dolezal. Alright, Rachel Dolezal was fucking retarded. She's Mediterranean Slavic. And, like, decided that because she got a perm and her hair was frizzy and, like, she had really tan skin, she could identify as black. And people thought she was a mulatto. And let her get away with it for a few weeks until her parents were like, wait a second. We're from, our family's from Croatia. What the fuck are you doing?
Really, I thought she got away with it until she went into that blacks only pageant at the University of Texas. Oh wait, no, that was
somebody else. That wasn't black enough, apparently.
What are they going to do? Start measuring the melatonin content of these people's fucking skin?
Yes, and then the entirety of the alt-right is going to
literal Nazi level shit.
They're gonna do that while at the same time the alt-right bitches and whines and keeps digging up old videos of Muhammad Ali for fucking ever. Like,
I look at these SJWs and I'm like, seriously, when do the parallels between you guys and the fucking Nazis need to be more distinct? You are obsessed with this shit. You are fucking obsessed with it.
Identity politics, fam.
You're nuts.
Identity politics, fam. You sound like you're dying over there, Tyler.
You know, when I entered the chat with you, it was like 4 a.m. in Germany, and now the sun is coming out. It's like, wait a minute.
Well, we heard the birds chirping.
Oh, it's 20 past 6, and I'm kind of tired, but also relieved to have a little chat with you guys. But it was a fucking exhausting week, let's say it that way. I had to deal with other stupid shit.
We'll let you go to bed, but before you go, we have to say thank you for coming on. Thanks for sticking around. And also, you are still like the most German dude ever, because you literally were like, it's 4 a.m, I should be in bed, but these guys are talking about tanks from World War II and shit. I need to get in on this.
No, I will stick around because it's weekend and I have the time. And I enjoy to talk with you guys, but I'm tired in terms of my body is dead, my mind doesn't want to think properly anymore.
My body is dead.
It feels. Do you know that feeling when your arm weighs like 20 pounds more than it should be?
Yeah.
Because you're so tired. Yeah, that is basically my arms, my legs, even my back is like I have like a backpack worth of 50 pounds on my back right now. It feels like that. That's the reason why I'm moaning sometimes. But it's kind of enjoyable. I only drank 3 beers and I'm not drunk, which is actually a good sign that my body is something.
That's only coming up now when you're having beer.
Germany. Germans. When I post this, I'm totally gonna just be like #Germans. Green text Germans.
#Germans. I know, right?
No, like seriously, like come on. All right, think about this, Tyler. You were like, it's 4 a.m. I've worked all week. I should be in bed right now, but I stayed up doing like engineering or some shit. Oh, they're having a conversation about geopolitics, engineering, and like World War II tanks. I need to get in on this shit. And then you sat here for like several hours, and we're like, oh yeah, it's like 5 a.m, and I'm having my 3rd beer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, did you guys also see the British National Health Service?
Oh, they got hacked.
What?
So bad.
They didn't even get hacked. They got infected by a shitty, like, Slavic teenager's ransomware worm. That he was probably
the goddamn Siberian technomancers at it again.
It was just using some shitty flash vulnerability to infect computers, but it was using a vulnerability that was identified as unpatched by the whole like Vault 7 cyber weapons leak thing.
Yeah.
Which just fucking proves my point even more that the CIA and the NSA and all this shit, all the cybersecurity stuff they do has never been actually about making you secure.
Well,
it's always been about securing their own ability to bypass yours.
Yeah, well, like Tyler said,
they focus entirely on offense, They don't give a fuck about defense, and that is completely irresponsible if they even have the pretense of protecting citizens.
Well, like Tyler was talking about,
they only
Fight their own private warriors. They're just fighting their own little wars. They don't even care about the people they're fighting.
Tyler was saying earlier that like a lot of the design philosophy behind some of the worst tanks of World War II could be majorly laid at the feet of people trying to suck up to Hitler, and Hitler hated the idea of defending. Same problem.
Yep.
Funny how all of this shit always seems to come together, huh?
Yeah, but no, because this is an intentional backdoor put into the Windows systems by the NSA.
I have to correct you. It wasn't some Serbian or Slavic guys. That is fucking fake news. Putin done did it. Don't forget
I see.
I forgot. It was him specifically. Technomancer Prime.
Putin is a really good computer hacker, Zoom.
All right.
Back when I was in community college and I was taking network classes, Putin was teaching them.
Yeah.
He was great.
That one subscriber that we have with artistic talent that somehow listens to us for some reason, after you're done drawing that Macron picture, can you get the cover of the Technomancer game and you Photoshop Putin's head under the hood of the Technomancer on the cover, please and thank you?
Yeah,
Tyler, do you ever play Quake 2?
No.
Damn it! This meme will never take off. Fuck.
Sorry, I sucked so much at Quake. The people at Quake were so much better than me. I was always an Unreal Tournament guy. I sucked so tremendously at Quake.
Dude, I've been trying to. Everyone keeps doing the fucking pasta memes, and I've been trying to make this joke take off forever because I'm terrible. Firstly, but secondly, the final boss of Quake 2 was this giant strong thing called the Macron. So I've just been like, come on, we have to do this, and everyone's just like, oh yeah, well we've reached a point of societal degeneration that most people have never actually played Quake 2.
It's the same with Half-Life. I grew up. The first proper shooter I've played in my life was Half-Life. Actually, I was obsessed with that game. I beat it I'm not lying, at least 100 times.
Everyone has a game like that, I'm guessing.
I'm just going to say I was a cheap bastard, and F5, F9 were my best friends.
Yes. Yes, next month I'm turning 30, and when I talk to the younger crowd on Discord, Half-Life? Yeah, I heard about it. It is a good game.
I heard about it once, but we play Counter-Strike Global Offensive now, and you just want to shoot yourself.
Yeah, fuck Global Offensive.
CSGO is garbage. Them horrible hitboxes. Anyway, speaking of horrible hitboxes, I got nothing actually. CIA, we've done our once an episode touching on how the CIA is garbage. Kimmel implies that Trump wants to kill babies. No, Kimmel implies that he doesn't understand how the medical industrial complex works, and Trump wants to cut funding to hospitals because administrative staff are fucking gay and retarded. Corporatists re.
Yeah, Kimmel's ramp was just. I kind of just looked at him as okay, listen. You're crazy. Listen, I know you hate Trump, but listen, it's all you talk about. Get help, Kimmel. Listen, Jimmy Kimmel, if you're listening to this,
he's never going to hear this.
Help. We're worried about you. We love you. This is an intervention.
No, this is just another thing we need to add to we're gonna just make the fucking League of Villainous Evildoers PSAs, where it's just the first one is Suede calling Sargon a little bitch, and the next one is Jimmy Kimmel, you need help, and it's just look they're public service announcements. We call them that because no one fucking cares about public service announcements anymore. God. Alright, I guess we'll finish this off with the last thing that we probably have to touch on because he still might be watching us for some fucking reason. Edgy showed back up on YouTube recently. Edgy Sphinx, and then went on Naked Ape stream, and the two of them proceeded to be rampantly retarded. I mean, they made fun of Jeff Holiday, and that was pretty great. But like after that, it was pretty stupid.
Oh, little Jeffy.
Yeah. By the way, what the fuck is YouTube Saints? Like, has anyone followed him or Nicholas Garolf enough to know what that is? Because I have no idea. I just keep seeing it shilled on Twitter. No one?
No.
All right. Well, anyway, Edgy Sphinx. So the reason why this torqued me off, and I'm glad Swade's back here so he can just be like, new fags re. Ape and Edgy got into a discussion about genetics and the alt-right and everything else, yada da 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 da. And then they started discussing about how the alt-right has fallen apart and it's being ruined by what they call the 1488 LARPers. And it's like, for fuck's sake, guys.
What?
1488 LARPers, the 1488 meme live-action role players. But I bet they don't actually know what LARP actually stands for, because once again, these guys they made their YouTube career over the last, 2 years, really, being talking heads for what was essentially the alt-right when they didn't understand anything about that shit, and they were just cannibalizing they were just scavenging and cannibalizing shit from Pole. And I've tried to explain this to people before. They keep taking from Chan culture and not understanding any of the ramifications of what they're talking about. Or the fucking... And now they're bitching about, once again, the ramifications. They're bitching about they're bitching about what they call the 1488 LARPers, when it's like, you guys are partially responsible for them existing in the first place. Like, you have no idea what you're doing on that site. You have no idea what the fuck you're talking about half the time. You just keep fucking using buzzwords and memes that you don't even know the origins of from a culture that you don't even understand. Somebody tell me I'm wrong here or something. I don't know.
No, that pretty much summarizes Edgy and... Edgy more than Naked. Naked seems at least more aware, because Edgy is just...
Naked's also a complete douche canoe, though, so,
He is a douche canoe, but even then, Edgy is just somehow blissfully unaware of reality.
It's just Edgy, if you've ever... when he had all of his live streams and everything, it's like, when he's not talking off of a scripted video, it's so obvious that he's kind of a quasi-normie that got into all this shit and is really just nervous about everything because he's never had anyone else to talk to about it. And it's so fucking weird to hear him talk about shit in the alt-right or from Pole or anything else, because it's not just the new fag effect of it just being oh well, I lurked for a year and now I can talk about this. It's it's not even the new fag effect. It's like he's a poser. He seems old school, early 2000s, an early 2000s, poser that's, on an MTV program about, whatever's in vogue of pop culture. And it just so happens to be, neo-Nazism.
Edgy is a Me Too guy, nothing more.
He's a what?
So he will a Me Too guy in terms of...
Yeah.
I don't know if you have the term in the United States.
No, I understand what you mean. Me too, guys.
He will always advocate the thing which is currently the most new cool thing, and right now it's being alt-right and the fucking racist stuff, which is kind of retarded. But yeah, he will always ponder to that groups who are right now the new thing on the new it style. That is what he's doing, nothing more. Because it doesn't matter what he's talking about. If you listen to him, he's always very, very superfluous about his topics, and if you go a little bit deeper, he always tries to distract.
Yeah, that's true.
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, I mean, goddamn, the biggest sticking point wasn't even just how he speaks or how he acts when he doesn't have everyone backing him up or anything else.
Wait, are we talking about Edgy or Naked at this point?
I mean, Naked actually can kind of hold his own. Edgy folds like as soon as possible on a lot of shit, I've noticed. But like Edgy, the narrative that he's pushing now that Spino is like in the shit can, is that Spino doxed him or something over Twitter and then used his real name on a live stream and shit. And it's like, all right, I'm not even going to fight the battle that you're trying to stage for me of this whole, oh, well, this guy doesn't have ethics, but I do, blah, 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 docs, whatever. It's like, I don't care about that. The whole, that whole fight is invalid. You're the motherfucker that went on a Q&A and said, if someone gets doxed, it's not my problem because that means they didn't secure their information well enough. Go fuck yourself. And I need to find the archive of that video because he deleted his entire channel, so I bet he'll just lie and be like, oh, I didn't say that.
I remember seeing the clip.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe my fucking ears. Like, do you really...
No, it's like, dude, you were just asking for it.
It's as bad as
you bent over and spread your cheeks.
Like, why would you think that? Like, no, okay, define adequately. Seriously, dude, how many levels of VPN are you supposed to have until things are adequate? Like, seriously, oh my God, I didn't secure my house adequately enough to stop this robber who broke down my front door, disabled my electronic alarm, and robbed me blind. I guess I hadn't adequately. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, well, the worst thing about this is
yourself. But that ain't on fucking you. That's on the person who broke into your property.
It's like, I'm calling it now. It's like, first he'll lie about it. If like that ever gets brought up, first he'll lie because until someone finds the archive footage, if it exists, there's no way to prove it to people who hadn't seen the video. It's all going to be anecdotal. First he's going to lie that he didn't say that. Then he's going to try and redefine that he did. And then he's going to be like, oh, well, I've changed my perspective on it and I was wrong in that regard, but not in this one. And it's like, no, dude, go fuck yourself.
It's like the stages of grief.
Hey, Swaid.
What's up?
How many proxies are you behind right now, fam?
Like 6 or 7.
You are like little baby. Watch this. This has been EdgeCast number 10. With me, Victor Von Zoom, really tired and out of it because this wasn't supposed to be an EdgeCast originally, actually. And Czar Tyler, also known as Tyler Durden, our special guest returning. And Mr. Swaid.
Hey.
And Garom.
Can all these people please get off of me now?
Yeah, look, man, we're seriously gonna need to find how the fuck is there only a two-seater couch in all of Sarajevo?